Tonight, we are not here to learn anything new. We simply sit together, soften the breath, and let the mind settle. If this moment brings you even a little peace, feel free to leave a silent dot by pressing follow. Where are you listening from? And what time is it inside your heart? Now dim the lights, turn on a gentle fan, and step into the night. There's nothing you need to bring along. The gate is always open. You walk slowly. The gravel under your feet crunches with a soft, rhythmic crackle, almost like it's whispering you into stillness. Ahead of you stands a wooden gate, old, worn, smooth by wind and weather, yet firm and welcoming. A soft breeze brushes your sleeve. The scent of pine needles and distant incense hovers in the air. You reach the threshold of the temple, unsure whether to knock or simply wait. But the gate is already ajar. No locks, no guards, just open space. You hesitate. Inside, a path leads toward a simple hall where paper lanterns glow like fireflies. You glance back over your shoulder and see nothing behind you. Not a city, not a road, just mist. A robed monk appears at the path's bend. His steps are so slow, so even you wonder if he's walking at all or merely gliding. When he nears, he bows slightly and says, "You've come far, but this place was never far." You nod, not because you understand, but because it feels like the right thing to do. He motions inward and adds, "The gate only appears closed to those who bring too much with them." As you walk in, you think of what you've brought: expectations, perhaps, a need for answers, a story about who you are. You notice that with every step forward, those things feel heavier. You let one drop, the need to understand. Another step, the idea of progress. By the time you reach the zendo's open floor, you feel oddly light. You sit beside the monk on a woven mat. No words are exchanged. Tea is poured, but not asked for. He doesn't even look at you yet. Somehow you feel seen, not in the way of being watched, but in the way clouds are seen by sky, completely without effort. The silence between you isn't awkward. It is full. He finally speaks again. "This temple has no doors, but many never find their way in." You blink. "Why?" He smiles gently, pouring more tea. "Because they keep trying to open what was never closed." Outside, a small bird hops along the edge of a mossy stone basin, taking delicate sips of water. The monk watches it for a long time, as if this was the entire purpose of this evening. You follow his gaze, and the longer you look at the bird, the more your own thoughts begin to quiet. Not because you're trying, but because there is nothing else to do. You begin to understand just barely entering the temple is not a matter of crossing a threshold, but of laying down the illusion that there was ever a threshold at all. That gate, you remember, was already open. And perhaps it always had been. The sound of one hand. The next morning, the air is cool and thin. Mist drapes over the temple roofs like an old shawl. You follow the scent of damp earth and pine into a small clearing where a young monk sits alone beneath a persimmon tree, holding one hand out in front of him, palm up, fingers gently curved, as if cradling something invisible. You wait, unsure whether to disturb him, but he speaks first without looking. If a tree falls in the forest and no one is there to hear it, does it still make a sound? You nod. You've heard this one. Yes, of course. He smiles faintly. And what is the sound of one hand clapping? You pause. This is different. You open your mouth, then close it. You try moving one hand through the air. It makes a brushing sound, but that's not it. You bring your hand to your chest, to your cheek. Still. Nothing clicks. The monk turns to face you now. His eyes are dark and quiet. You can't solve a koan, he says. You can only dissolve in it. He taps his chest lightly, like the way a bell doesn't try to echo. You sit down beside him, crossing your legs. The earth is soft and cool beneath you. A crow calls out from the treetops. The wind moves through the branches, making a hush-hush sound, like cloth being folded in slow motion. Why ask something unsolvable, you finally ask. He picks up a fallen persimmon and places it gently in your palm. It's warm from the sun, even in this foggy light. Because questions that can't be answered have a strange effect, he says. They make you stop looking outward. You understand, a little. You stare at your hand. You wiggle your fingers. You listen. What is the sound of one hand? It's not a riddle, not a trick. It's a doorway. And suddenly you realize the real point isn't the sound. It's the silence around it. The vast, echoless field in which all clapping, all striving eventually fades. The monk closes his eyes again and returns to stillness. But before he does, he whispers something so softly, you're not even sure you heard it. One hand has always been enough. You don't respond. You don't need to. There's no applause, no answer. Only the rustling leaves and the sound of nothing echoing everything. Chop wood, carry water. Later that day, as the sun climbs above the trees, you're handed a dull axe and pointed toward a stack of uneven firewood behind the meditation hall. No instructions, no ceremonial lesson. Just the monk from the kitchen nodding toward the pile, then walking away without a word. You grip the handle. It's worn smooth by decades of hands like yours, hands that came here looking for something deeper, more spiritual, more meaningful than chopping wood. But here you are. You raise the axe, split, stack, again and again. At first your mind resists. Isn't there something more sacred to be doing, it says. But the wood doesn't answer. It just waits. With each swing, something loosens, not in the wood, but in you. A memory breaks loose. A bit of planning dissolves. Then some comparison. Then impatience. After a while, you forget you're chopping at all. You just move. You notice the scent of pine sap on your skin, the ache in your shoulders, the rhythm between inhale, raise, exhale, strike. The temple bell rings somewhere in the distance, and for the first time in hours, you hear it clearly, as if your ears had been clogged with thoughts, and now finally were clean. Later, the same kitchen monk returns and says simply, "Now water." He points to a wooden bucket and a footpath winding toward the river. You carry it down step by careful step, trying not to spill. But the bucket wobbles. The weight shifts. Water sloshes onto your robes. You laugh not because it's funny, but because for once you're not trying to get it right. When you return, dripping and smiling, the monk offers you a small bowl of rice and gestures for you to sit. You did well, he says, even when you stop trying. You ask him what the task was meant to teach. He raises his bowl, takes a bite, chews, swallows. Chop wood, carry water. He says, "That's it." He nods. For now. You look at your hands. They ache slightly, but they feel real, honest, empty of theory. You realize something subtle you didn't need to be taught. You just needed to do. The truth wasn't in the task. It was in the attention. A bowl of clear water. The next morning, a different monk, older with a beard, white like ash, and eyes that have clearly seen more than they explain hands. You a wooden bowl filled to the brim with clear water. He holds it out in both palms with great care, as if offering something sacred. "You are this," he says. You blink unsure. Water. He shakes his head. Stillness. You peer into the bowl. The surface reflects the early light, a pale sky stretched across liquid. You see your own face, too warped slightly by the curve of the bowl. A soft breeze moves through the courtyard, and the reflection shivers. Your mind, he says, is like this. Then, just as you're beginning to understand, he taps the edge of the bowl gently, but enough to make the water ripple violently. Your reflection is gone, replaced by waves and chaotic light. This, he says, is what thinking does. You frown, clutching the bowl tightly, trying to steady it. He watches you strain to make the water still again. You hold your breath. Try not to move. And yet, the ripples remain. Trying, he says, is also a ripple. You exhale. A little frustrated, a little embarrassed. He walks away without another word, leaving you standing there with a bowl of water that won't behave. You sit down slowly. The wooden floor is warm beneath your legs. You place the bowl in front of you. The ripples slowly, very slowly begin to fade. Minutes pass, maybe more. Eventually, you stop watching the water. You stop willing it to still. You just sit, and then the surface returns to mirror-like clarity. Not because you fixed it, but because you stopped interfering. You look into it again. Your face returns. But this time, it's not what you focus on. It's the space behind it. The calm, the nothing. Later that day, you see the old monk again. He's sweeping leaves with a crooked broom. You bow slightly and say, "I think I understand now." He pauses, leans on the broom, and raises a brow. "Ah." So the water stayed still. You shake your head. "No. I stopped trying to still it." He smiles. "Good." Then he lifts the broom and begins sweeping again, just a little slower. The empty cup. You find yourself sitting across from a visiting scholar. Robes, pressed scrolls packed neatly at his side, words polished like river stones. He speaks of lineage, texts, logic. He quotes sutras without missing a syllable. You listen politely, sipping your tea. The abbot seated beside you listens too, but only with half his gaze. The other half seems to be watching the way the steam rises. After some time, the scholar asks to learn from the abbot directly. "I have studied for 20 years, he says, and wish to deepen my understanding." The abbot nods gently. "Very well," he says, reaching for the teapot. He begins to pour tea into the scholar's cup, slowly, carefully. The cup fills. Then the abbot continues pouring. The tea overflows. It spills onto the tray. Then the floor. The scholar jerks back. "Master, the cup is full." The abbot stops pouring and places the pot back on the table. So is your mind. The scholar stiffens. I came for knowledge, not riddles. The abbot looks at the tea pooling under the cup. Then first let go of what you think you know. You say nothing, but inside something stirs. You recall your own arrival, how full you were of goals, assumptions, and the need to attain peace. You look at your cup now half empty, or perhaps half ready. Later, as you walk through the garden, you see a boy tipping over a bucket with both hands. The water flows freely down the stone path. The boy smiles, watching it swirl and vanish between cracks. You crouch beside him and ask, "Why did you spill it?" He shrugs, "So I could carry something new." You sit there a long time watching water find its way through stone, and when you return to your room that evening, you notice the wind has moved your door ajar. You don't close it. You leave it open just a little, not for the breeze, but for the space. Why the master laughed. You're raking leaves in the southern courtyard when you hear a sudden burst of laughter, sharp, ringing, utterly out of place in the silence of morning. You look up to see the old abbot's shoulders shaking with quiet amusement, standing beside a novice who looks confused, slightly red in the face, and still holding a broom upside down. You pause. The abbot catches your eye and motions you over. The novice bows and hurries away flustered. The abbot gestures for you to sit on the low stone wall beside him. "She asked me," he says, chuckling again. "Where is the path to enlightenment?" You smile, and "I pointed to her feet," he says, grinning. She looked down and frowned. You both sit in silence. The wind stirs dry leaves across the stones like scattered thoughts trying to organize themselves. The abbot picks one up, turns it in his hand, and then lets it go again. "She wanted an answer she could write down," he says. "Something to remember, something to chase." You nod. You've wanted that too. But the truth, he says, isn't a ladder. It's not even a road. You glance at your hands calloused from yesterday's woodcutting. At your feet, the dust and print of where you've stood, walked, turned. "So why did you laugh?" you ask. The abbot leans back slightly. His voice softens. "Because it was funny. So sincere. So serious. As if truth were a dragon she needed to slay." He looks at you but gently, without challenge. "But what if there's no dragon?" You think for a long moment, then ask, "So, what do we do?" He shrugs. "Rake leaves, brew tea, watch birds." You wait for more, but he offers nothing, not even a smile this time. You realize the laughter wasn't mockery, it was joy. Joy in seeing how near we are to what we seek, and how far we imagine it to be. The path is not far away. It's not even ahead. It is beneath you, already being walked. And sometimes the only appropriate response is laughter. No mirror, no dust. You're in the meditation hall just before dawn. The world is hushed, not silent exactly, but resting. Candles flicker at the edges. The tatami beneath you smells faintly of pine and old rain. Across the room, a senior monk rises and walks slowly toward the shrine. He kneels and bows, then reaches for a small cloth and begins gently wiping the surface of a bronze mirror that hangs on the wall. You watch. There doesn't seem to be any dust. The mirror gleams already. Yet he continues to polish it slow and steady, with the same reverence you've seen during chants or tea ceremonies. After several minutes, you approach and ask quietly, "Is there something on it?" He smiles, "Yes." You lean in. "What?" He stops polishing, looks at you with a calm that makes your own thoughts stumble. The belief that something is wrong. You glance at the mirror. Your reflection wavers in it, slightly distorted, but still yours. The monk continues, "Many think practice is about removing what's dirty, fixing what's broken." You nod. That's how you've thought of it too, like clearing fog from glass or sweeping a floor. But in Zen, he says we begin with the truth. The mirror is already clean. He places the cloth back in the altar drawer. There is no dust. Only the thought of dust. You sit with this. Outside, the first birds begin to sing. The sound is clear, not perfect, but real. You remember a story someone told during evening tea of a master who said enlightenment is simply the absence of seeking, and another who replied, "Then why do we sit?" And the master laughed to realize we've always been sitting. You turn back to the mirror. Your face is still there, but behind it, only space, only seeing, only what is. Not waiting for you to fix it, not asking to be improved, simply reflecting. No mirror, no dust, no you, only now. The man who ran from rain. You pass an old gate behind the temple grounds and find a narrow path you haven't seen before. Curious, you follow it. The trees here are tall and close together, their branches whispering above like soft conversations you're not meant to hear. And that's when you see him, an old man running, arms over his head, weaving between trees in a panic. There's no thunder, no storm, only the faintest mist in the air. You call out, "Is everything all right?" He stops and turns eyes wide. "The rain," he says. "It's coming." You look up. The sky is pale grayish blue, no darker than a sigh. A few lazy drops fall onto your sleeve. Barely anything. Just the mountain air thickening into moisture. He looks at you as if surprised you haven't joined him. You should find shelter. You pause. But it's just rain. He stares at you, then mutters, "It never stops if you don't run." Then he's off again, sprinting toward nowhere in particular. You watch him go. The forest absorbs his footsteps, and soon all you hear are drops pattering gently on leaves. You keep walking, not rushing, not avoiding. The rain begins to grow. Not heavy, but steady. Cool. Soft. Like being touched by something that never meant to harm you. You pass an old wooden bench under a pine and sit. The scent of wet bark fills your lungs. Rain slides down your cheek like a hand without a purpose. You remember the old man drenched and afraid of being wet. And suddenly it seems kind of funny. A monk later tells you pain becomes suffering when we flee it. And you understand the rain is not the problem. The running is. You let the drops fall, and you realize this is what it means to stay present. Not because the rain disappears, but because you no longer wish it would. The bamboo's secret. Near the edge of the temple garden, there's a grove of bamboo, tall, slender, and quiet in that particular way only bamboo knows how to be. You're asked to sweep the fallen leaves around the grove, though there are only a few. The task seems unnecessary. Still, you take up the broom and begin. As you move slowly through the grove, the wind arrives, not loudly, not with warning, just a breath through the stalks, and suddenly the entire forest begins to sway. It's not chaotic. It's not frantic. It's fluid, almost as if the bamboo were dancing with the wind rather than resisting it. You stop sweeping. You just watch. And in watching, you learn. None of the bamboo bends in exactly the same way. Some curve deeply, others only slightly, but none break. None fight. They lean and they return. They yield and they stay rooted. A monk steps quietly beside you. You hadn't noticed him arrive. They say bamboo holds the secret of Zen, he murmurs. You nod, eyes still on the movement. Soft, he says, but unshakable. Empty but full of life. It bends, but never forgets where it belongs. You watch a particularly thin stalk arch low under the wind, almost to the ground, then rise back to its place without a sound. The monk continues. It teaches us to bow without losing dignity, to yield without giving up, and to be hollow so that truth can pass through. You grip the broom loosely. For the first time, you notice its handle is made of bamboo too. Later, as the wind fades and stillness returns, you resume sweeping. But it feels different now. Not like work, like a conversation. Between the broom and the leaves. Between you and something deeper. Not spoken, but known. The bamboo sways once more behind you, and you bow just slightly in return, finger pointing to the moon. You're seated beneath the large plum tree near the meditation hall, when a young novice joins you, face scrunched in confusion. She clutches a worn scroll to her chest. I don't understand, she says, almost pleading. They keep saying the words are not the thing, that the teaching is just a finger pointing to the moon. But I've memorized every sutra. I chant every morning. Isn't that enough? You nod gently, remembering when you too believed that knowing the map was the same as walking the land. She unfolds the scroll, a beautiful verse on impermanence, and looks at you expectantly. You ask her, do you know what a moon looks like? She nods, of course. You point upward. There you say, look. She looks up. The sky is pale and bright. No moon. Daylight hides it from view. There's nothing there, she says. You keep pointing, but it's there, hidden behind light. Your mind is like that. She frowns. So I shouldn't read anymore. You shake your head. The words are helpful, like fingers. But if you keep staring at the finger, you miss the moon, she finishes softly. You smile. Exactly. She stares at the sky for a long time. Not searching, just resting her eyes in its vastness. Later that evening, you find her again, this time walking slowly in the garden, no scroll in hand. When you pass by, she bows and says, I think I saw it today. Not the moon, but something behind the pointing. You reply, then hold it lightly. And when it fades, let it go. That night, as you sit alone under the stars, you think of how often we worship the guidepost and forget the path. How we memorize the recipe but never taste the soup. How we honor the teacher but ignore the teaching. The moon is always there even when we forget to look up. A bridge that wasn't there. Mist blankets the valley like a dream half remembered. You're walking behind an old monk along a narrow path that wraps around a ridge. The earth is damp, the air thick with the smell of moss and morning. Ahead, the path suddenly ends. A gap, a wide ravine carved by a stream long ago, now dry but still deep. No bridge. No planks, just emptiness between one edge and the next. You stop, The monk doesn't. He steps forward, and where your eyes see nothing, he walks. Firm, steady across open air. But it isn't air. Beneath his feet, a line of stones reveals itself. Narrow, worn, almost the same color as the earth. So subtle they were invisible from your angle. You exhale, realizing the path was always there, just hidden by your expectation of what a bridge should look like. When the monk reaches the other side, he turns, smiles, and says, "Most people wait for someone to build them a crossing." You look down again, still uncertain. He adds, "Sometimes the bridge appears only when you move." You hesitate, then step forward. Your foot lands on a stone, then another. No railings, no signs. Just a quiet trust in the stones, in your steps, in the fact that some things are only visible mid-stride. Each step becomes easier, lighter, and though the gap doesn't shrink, your fear does. When you reach the other side, the monk nods. Now you understand. You ask, understand what? That the only thing missing, he says, was your willingness to begin. Later that evening, back at the temple, you hear someone whisper during a tea ceremony, "There is no path, only walking." And you realize maybe that bridge never existed. Maybe it didn't need to. Maybe walking was the bridge all along. Sweeping leaves in autumn wind, the maple trees around the temple have turned to flame. Crimson, gold, and amber flutter in the breeze like quiet sparks from a fire that never burns. You're handed a broom and pointed toward the garden path. It's already mostly clear, but still you sweep. A monk nearby is doing the same. His movements slow, fluid, almost like a dance. He doesn't seem concerned about how many leaves remain. He doesn't chase them. Meanwhile, you find yourself caught in frustration. You sweep a section clean, and a gust of wind blows more leaves across it. You scowl, redo it, and again more leaves arrive. As if mocking your effort, you sigh, "It never ends." The other monk chuckles softly. "Why should it?" You pause, broom mid-air. "Then what's the point?" He looks up, eyes kind. "Do you sweep to finish, or to be here?" You don't know how to answer. He continues. "The wind is not against you. It just doesn't care what you want. It moves. Leaves fall. That's all." You stand there for a moment, watching the leaves tumble down like slow rain. No pattern, no purpose, just movement. Just now. So you try again, not to clear, but to participate. You follow the rhythm of the wind, the swirl of leaves. Your sweeping becomes softer. You stop trying to make the path perfect. You start enjoying the sound of the bristles brushing stone, the way your breath matches the breeze. Later you leave a few leaves where they are beautiful in their disorder. And when a senior monk walks by, he smiles and says, "Now it looks like autumn." That night, you sit beneath the maple trees, watching as one single leaf flutters down and lands gently at your feet. You do nothing! You just breathe and let it be. Let the tiger pass. You're walking alone through a forest path, when the air changes the way it sometimes does before a storm or a deep realization. The birds go quiet. Even the leaves seem to hold their breath. That's when you see it, a tiger. Not large, not roaring, but unmistakably there, padding slowly through the trees ahead. Its shoulders ripple like waves. Its gaze moves past you, not at you, but through you. As if you were not a threat, not even a presence. just wind. Your body tenses, your breath stops. You remember the teaching, stay present, do not panic, observe. But your instincts scream, run, hide, do something, and yet you don't. You stay, not by force, but by something else. A calm that arises beneath fear. A soft whisper, let it pass. The tiger pauses, sniffs the air. Its golden eyes flicker towards you and then away. It walks past, slowly, silently, dissolving into the forest as if it had never been there. You stand still for a long time after it's gone, your heart slowly returning to its rhythm. Later at the temple, you tell the story to an elder monk. He nods, then says, "You met your anger." You blink. Anger. He smiles. Sometimes the mind sends tigers. They pass if you don't feed them. You sit with this. How many tigers have you run from in life? Fear, shame, blame, only to be chased longer by the running. And now you've learned something radical. Not all danger must be fought. Not all emotions must be solved. Some simply want to pass through like storms or wild animals or grief, and will do so if you don't try to cage them. That night, as you sit alone under the stars, a thought visits, sharp, fierce, and unsettling. You don't push it away. You bow to it and let it pass. The master's cough. The meditation hall is unusually full today. A visiting master from another region has arrived. A man said to be enlightened in silence, who speaks rarely and even then only when necessary. You sit among the others, legs folded, spine tall, breath soft. Candles flicker. The smell of old wood and incense floats between bodies. Everyone waits and waits. The master sits at the front of the hall, eyes half closed, unmoving. He says nothing. Minutes stretch into what feels like hours. Some students begin to shift. Cough quietly, clear throats. A fly lands on someone's cheek. Still the master remains silent. Then he coughs. Once. Just once. Not loudly, not in distress. Just a dry, brief clearing of the throat. But it echoes. You feel it in your bones. No one speaks, but the energy in the room shifts. Something ancient stirs. Some lean forward thinking he's about to begin. Others glance at each other unsure, but nothing follows. The master doesn't elaborate, doesn't explain. He just breathes. Later after the session, whispers fill the courtyard. What did it mean? Was the cough intentional? Was it a teaching? You bring the question to your mentor. He smiles gently. It was just a cough, he says. You frown, but it felt like more. He nods. Yes, because you were listening. He places a hand lightly on your shoulder. That's the teaching. You sit with that all evening and slowly realize the power of a moment isn't in its volume, but in your presence. It's not the cough that matters. It's the silence that made you hear it. The attention that made something ordinary feel sacred. You begin to notice more now, the sound of sandals on stone, the rhythm of your own breath, the rustle of wind through pine. Nothing special, nothing hidden, but heard, and that perhaps is enough. Sleeping under the full moon. You decide to sleep outside tonight. No roof, no walls. Just the sky stretched endlessly above you, brushed with soft clouds and the quiet presence of a full moon. You carry a straw mat out to the open platform behind the temple, the one monks sometimes use when the nights are warm and the air carries more silence than sound. As you lie down, the wood beneath you creaks a little, adjusting to your weight, then settles into stillness. The scent of pine lingers faintly, and somewhere nearby a night bird sings just once, then falls silent again. You look up. The moon is luminous, steady, patient. It doesn't blink. It doesn't ask questions. It simply is. And something inside you begins to mirror that same stillness. The thoughts that usually rattle around in your mind, what to do, how to feel, where to go next, seem suddenly too loud for this kind of night. So they retreat one by one like footsteps fading down a hallway. You remember something an old hermit once told you. Sometimes the most enlightened thing you can do is nothing. At the time, it had sounded like laziness. Now it feels like wisdom. Your breath deepens. You turn onto your side, facing the moon as if to say goodnight. And in that soft glow, you begin to understand something gentle but true. There is no moment more complete than this one. No lesson more urgent than letting yourself rest. No temple holier than a body that finally feels safe to let go. Sleep does not come in a rush. It arrives slowly like fog rolling through the trees. And when it does, you don't fight it. You don't hold it. You just fall, like a leaf, like breath, like moonlight touching your skin, the stone that floated. The next morning, after a breakfast of rice and miso soup, you are sent to the lower stream to collect smooth stones for the garden. The air is crisp, the sky quiet, and your basket swings gently at your side. The path winds through bamboo and cedar until you reach the water, clear, shallow, with sunlight glinting across its ripples. You take off your sandals and step in. It's colder than expected. You laugh just a little at your own shiver. You begin picking stones, smooth, round, dark gray. They sit heavy in your hand with the comfort of weight that feels honest. That's when you see it, a flat stone hovering just below the surface, except it isn't below the surface. It's on the surface, floating. Not bobbing like wood, but steady, perfectly still. You blink, move closer, touch it. It's a leaf, just a leaf, dark, dense, waterlogged. But for a moment your mind had believed something impossible, and your body had responded with wonder. You sit on the riverbank, leaf in hand, and ask yourself, what else have I believed? Simply because I wanted it to be true. A passing monk joins you and smiles at your expression. Did it float? He asks. For a moment, you say. He nods. That's all a delusion needs. You hold the leaf a while longer before letting it drift back into the current. It spins lazily, dances briefly, then vanishes into sunlight and motion. Later, when you return to the temple, your basket full of real stones, someone asks what you found. You say a floating rock. They laugh, but you don't, because for 1 second it had floated. Not in the world, but in you. And sometimes that's the only place illusion needs to live to feel real, until it doesn't. When the teacup cracked. In the temple's small tea room, there's a teacup everyone seems to avoid. It sits on the back shelf, chipped on the rim, a visible crack running down one side, sealed with a thin golden line. You notice it one evening during tea service and reach for it, curious. A monk gently touches your wrist. That one, he says softly, is already enlightened. You blink. It's broken. He nods, and then made whole without hiding the scar. You study the cup more closely now. The crack has been repaired with lacquer mixed with gold. The fault is not concealed, it's illuminated. Kintsugi, they call it in the older texts. The art of mending what's broken, not to return it to what it was, but to reveal what it has become. Later that night, you dream of things you've tried to forget, memories you've kept sealed like old letters, the time you failed someone, the grief you rushed past, the anger you denied. They rise one by one, but this time you don't flinch. You simply breathe and let them surface like cracks outlined in gold, no longer reasons to hide. The next day during tea, you choose the cracked cup. No one says anything. The tea is still warm, still fragrant, still enough, and somehow the cup feels lighter, not in weight, but in meaning. You sip slowly, and a quiet understanding unfolds in you. You don't need to be untouched to be whole. You don't need to be smooth to be sacred. What once broke you may now be the line where light enters. What you thought made you less may be what makes you real. Later, you place the cup gently back on the shelf, but in a different spot, not hidden, in view, feeding the hungry ghost. You're in the back garden helping with compost when an elderly monk joins you carrying a small bowl of rice. He sets it down beneath the gnarled pine boughs to the ground and says nothing. You ask what it's for. He replies, the hungry ghost. You've heard the term before in stories, chants, old sutras. Restless beings with distended bellies and needle-thin throats. Forever hungry, but never full. You frown, but there's no ghost here. The monk smiles. Aren't there? He doesn't explain. Later that day during zazen, your thoughts spiral. You replay something someone said to you 3 years ago. Then a regret from your teens. Then an image of someone you haven't forgiven. Then desire for approval, for control, for more. They come one after another, endless and insatiable. You open your eyes and finally understand the hungry ghost isn't out there. It's inside. It's the craving that never rests. The voice that whispers not enough into the quiet of every present moment. The ghost that haunts not with moans, but with longing. That night you ask the monk why feed it. He sips his tea. Because starving it makes it wilder, but noticing it softens it. You return to the pine tree with your own bowl of rice. Not as an offering to spirits, but to the craving itself. You place it gently beneath the root's bow and whisper, I see you. And something softens. The ghost does not disappear, but it quiets, just a little, enough to let you breathe again. You realize the practice is not to destroy craving, but to meet it without judgment, to bow even to your own restlessness, to say, I know you are hungry. But tonight, we sit together, and maybe that is what full feels like. The bird that sang once. It happens near the old bell tower, just as the sun begins to lower itself behind the distant peaks. You're sitting alone on a bench, the day nearly folded into evening when you hear it. One note, clear, singular, impossible to describe. A bird sings just once, then silence. You look around, but see nothing. No fluttering wings, no rustling branches. Only the sound still echoing faintly in your chest. You wait for another note. None comes, and something strange stirs in you, a longing, but not for more. A kind of ache that's full, not empty. Later during evening tea, you share what happened with a monk who has grown old inside the temple walls. He nods slowly. Sometimes once, is enough. You ask, but why not sing again? He stirs his tea. Because then it becomes a performance. You sit with that. You think of how much of your life has been filled with repetition, trying again, needing more, holding on to experiences long after they've passed. But that bird, it gave one note, fully, freely, without asking to be remembered. And in doing so, it became unforgettable. The monk adds gently, Zen isn't about more. It's about complete. You begin to notice how often you reach for another word, another breath, another moment. How hard it is to believe that this is enough. But that note, it lingers, not in your ears, but in your being. That night, as the moon rises and the lanterns flicker across the stone paths, you walk quietly back to your room, listening not for more music, but for the silence that followed it. And in that silence, you feel something whole. Not because it lasted, but because it didn't have to. You cannot step in twice. The next morning, you follow the stream downhill, not for any duty, but simply because your feet want to move. The path is dappled in shifting light, filtered through leaves that tremble with breeze and time. You come to a bend where the water pools slow and glassy. A flat stone extends slightly over the bank, so you step onto it and crouch. Your reflection wavers. The sky floats within it. You dip your fingers into the water. Gone. The moment vanishes, ripples erasing your face. You try again. Another reflection, another distortion. No two the same. A monk's voice sounds behind you. You hadn't noticed him approach. You know the saying, he says gently. You cannot step into the same river twice. You nod, finishing the quote in your mind. For it is not the same river, and you are not the same person. He sits beside you, folding his robe beneath him. Most suffering, he continues, comes from trying to return to something that's already moved on. You look at the stream. Water flows around rocks, curling through roots. Never still, never repeated. You think of times you've tried to go back to moments, to feelings, to people, to ideas of yourself that no longer fit. You carried them like old keys, hoping to unlock doors that had long since dissolved. And you see now there are no keys, no locks, only water, only change. The monk scoops up a handful of stream water and lets it fall through his fingers. Can you hold this? He asks. You shake your head. He smiles. Then why keep trying? You sit there together for a long while, letting the river pass. Not grabbing, not naming, just witnessing. And in doing so, you realize you don't need to step in again. Just once fully was already enough. The candle burns without flame. Evening has settled, and the temple corridors glow with the soft breath of lanterns. You're helping arrange cushions in the hall when a blind monk enters, tapping gently with a wooden cane. You offer to guide him. He smiles and says, I see well enough. You watch him move, deliberate calm, not a trace of hesitation. He finds his seat, folds into stillness, and rests his hands like petals in his lap. After zazen, he invites you to his room. There are no lights inside, just the scent of sandalwood, the quiet rustle of fabric, and a warmth that doesn't seem to come from fire. You ask him how he manages in the dark. He replies, You think I live in darkness, but I only stopped relying on light. He pours you tea with a grace that stuns you. Not a drop spills. You sip in silence. Then he says, The flame you trust, the eye, the image, the form, it flickers. It deceives. What sees does not need sight. You hesitate. Then, how do you see? He taps his chest lightly. Here. He points at his ear. Here. He breathes in. Here. And then he smiles. And sometimes, here tapping his cane on the floor. You sit with him longer than you intended. Not talking, not trying to understand, just absorbing the strange peace of a man who sees without eyes, who knows his space without borders, who walks the world not through light, but through presence. As you leave, he says one last thing. You are looking for clarity. But clarity is not brightness. It is knowing how to walk when there is no light. Outside, the wind stirs, and you wonder, perhaps awakening isn't like lightning. Perhaps it's like a candle that burns without flame. Rain on a tin roof. A gentle rain begins just after midday. Not a storm, not a shower, but that steady kind of rain that feels like the sky is exhaling. You take refuge beneath the eaves of the tool shed, a small structure behind the main hall. Its roof is old tin patched in places with bamboo strips and stones for weight. Then it begins the music, raindrops tapping on metal in no discernible pattern, yet somehow still a song. Soft, unpredictable, and alive. You sit. Nothing else happens. No monks pass. No tasks arrive. Just you, the rain, and the drumbeat of impermanence. For a while your thoughts try to fill the space, remembering, planning, narrating. But eventually, they fall away. One by one, like droplets down the edge of the roof. You begin to listen, not with your ears, but with your attention. The kind that doesn't reach outward, but rests inward. The rain becomes not sound, but rhythm. Not distraction, but presence. You remember a teacher once saying the rain never hurries. The roof never resists. And now you feel it, that quiet cooperation between falling and receiving, between what life brings and how we open to it. You look around, nothing moves, but everything is happening. You notice the rain darkening the stones. The way one droplet clings to the edge of the eave swells, then lets go, joining the earth with a tiny kiss. That drop had no name, no purpose, but it fell, fully, and now it's gone. Later you return to your room. The rain continues. But now you no longer wish for it to stop. You leave the window open slightly, just enough for the sound to drift in like breath. And as night falls, you listen again. Not for meaning, just for the rain. Answer without speaking. It's a morning of stillness. The temple feels quieter than usual, as though the wind itself is holding its breath. You walk through the lower courtyard and find a group gathered beneath the Bodhi tree encircling the abbot and a young child. The child is perhaps no more than 7, barefoot, calm, eyes bright like water catching sun. The abbot poses a question to the group. What is Zen? Some smile politely. A few begin to answer, quoting, explaining, using metaphors about mirrors, mountains, and emptiness. The abbot listens, neither nodding nor disagreeing. Then he turns to the child and repeats, "And you? What is Zen?" The child says nothing. He just steps forward, picks up a fallen Bodhi leaf, holds it for a breath, and lets it go. The leaf drifts gently, turning, fluttering to the ground. Silence. Then the abbot bows. No further questions. You stand frozen. Not from confusion, but from something deeper. The kind of recognition that bypasses the mind. Later you ask the abbot, why didn't he speak? He smiles. Because Zen is not a sentence. You sit beside him. But how did he know? The abbot replies, he didn't think. He noticed. You close your eyes and feel the morning air. You hear footsteps, insects, the soft creak of old wood. Nothing profound, nothing hidden. You remember how often you've chased insight through thought, how you've tried to explain silence with words, capture stillness with structure. But the leaf said it all, not with noise, but with falling. That evening, as dusk unfurls its soft colors across the mountain, you pick up your teacup and hold it without sipping. Not to drink, but to feel. You don't say a word, and in that not saying you begin to understand. The fish that flew. You're standing at the edge of a quiet pond behind the meditation hall. The surface is so still it looks like glass. Beneath it, koi drift like living brushstrokes, red, white, gold, weaving through shadows with gentle dignity. A monk joins you. He carries a small net but makes no move to use it. Instead, he kneels and watches the fish with the kind of attention that makes the world slow down. After a while, he asks, "Do you think a fish can fly?" You smile, thinking it a joke. "No, you say it's not built for that." He nods. "But if it leaps from the pond, even for a second, is it not flying? You consider this." "Yes," you say, "but only briefly." He smiles. "Sometimes briefly is enough." You sit beside him, watching the koi flick their tails gently. Then, with a sudden burst of motion, one leaps an arc of color water spraying from its scales and splashes back into the pond. For that moment, it was not swimming. It was airborne, effortless, free. The monk says that's how awakening comes. A flash, a leap, then back to water. You whisper, "And then what?" "Then you swim," he says, "but now, knowing." You fall quiet. How many times have you waited for something lasting a moment that never ends, a feeling that stays forever? But now you wonder, what if the moment doesn't need to last? What if its briefness is what makes it sacred? You watch another koi leap, just once, and something in your chest moves with it. Not because you rose, but because you remembered for even a heartbeat that you could. That night you dream of water turning into sky, and you do not fall, you fly. 3 bows at dawn. The temple bell sounds long before the sky begins to lighten. Its deep, slow echo rolls through your bones, like a memory you haven't remembered yet. You rise quietly, wrap yourself in your robe, and follow the others to the main hall. Inside, the space is dim, just a few lanterns, and the glow of silent presence. No one speaks. At the altar, an elder monk bows 3 times, slow, deliberate, forehead to floor. You follow. First bow. The ground is cold. Your knees press into it with weight, not pain, but honesty. This bow is for the world you think. Its beauty, its grief, its vastness that holds you whether you notice or not. Second bow. You exhale more slowly. Your spine rounds. This one is for all beings you whisper inside. Those you've loved. Those you've hurt. Those you'll never meet. Third bow. This one takes time. You feel it in your fingertips, your belly, your breath. This is for the self you keep trying to become, and the one you already are. You stay down a little longer than expected, not out of fatigue, but because something inside you softens when low to the ground. After the bows, everyone sits. No chants, no dharma talk, just presence. You feel full, though nothing has been given. You feel forgiven, though no one has named your mistake. You feel connected not to others, but to something beneath all names. Later, someone asks, "Why 3 bows?" And the elder monk answers, "One to remember, one to return, one to release." You carry those words with you into the day, like a quiet stone in your pocket. Not to hold tightly, just to know it's there. Sweat, rice, and stillness. It's planting season in the lower fields. You're handed a straw hat, a worn shovel, and a linen cloth for your neck. The monk in charge says nothing, just points to a long row of soil ready to be shaped. You work side by side with others. No speaking, only movement. The sun rises slowly, heating the earth until it smells like memory. Your back aches by mid-morning. Your palms blister before noon. Sweat collects along your spine and drips from your brow, yet no one complains. You look up at one monk, tall, lean mud to his knees, and notice the serene rhythm of his digging. He breathes in, digs, breathes out, levels. Every motion has become meditation. You try to match him. At first, your body resists rushing, correcting, judging. But eventually, the thoughts grow tired. The body continues. The breath slows. You find a kind of stillness hidden inside the labor. The rice is planted by hand, tiny green shoots, spaced with care. You hold them gently, almost like babies, pressing them into the flooded field with fingers rather than force. Hours pass like moments, or moments stretch into hours. You're no longer thinking about planting. You're simply planting. At lunch, you sit with a bowl of fresh rice, white, fragrant, humble. You take one bite and feel a surge of awareness. This bowl holds your sweat, your blisters, your breath. You've eaten rice before, but not like this. Now it is more than food. It is effort. It is the earth. It is the sky. It is you. Later, as you lie under a tree to rest, you think. Stillness isn't the absence of motion. It's being so fully in the motion that nothing is left to resist. A bell without a clapper. There's a bell in the old northern pagoda, tall bronze carved with dragons and lotus petals. It hangs from a wooden beam, but no one strikes it. There is no clapper inside, only emptiness. You find it one afternoon, tucked away in silence. A monk appears beside you as you're staring up at it. Why doesn't it ring, you ask? He runs his fingers along its surface, reverent. It does, he says. You just have to listen differently. You wait expecting a metaphor. He waits offering none, so you sit with the bell. Long enough for your mind to grow quiet. No sound, but something shifts. You begin to hear everything around it, the breeze through bamboo, a far-off crow, the faint hum of insects in the grass. It's as if the bell has become a frame for silence, and within that frame the world speaks more clearly. The monk adds softly, some truths ring loudest through absence. You think of the times in your life when words failed, but presence didn't. When someone just sat with you, said nothing, and it meant everything. You think of prayers never spoken, goodbyes, never voiced forgiveness that came not through language, but through soft eyes and time. This bell teaches you something, that not all expression requires noise. That resonance is not always vibration. That the loudest teachings leave no echo, only awareness. Before you leave, you place your palm against the cool metal. It hums under your skin, but not with sound, with stillness. That night, back in your room, someone drops a cup nearby. It shatters. The noise is sharp. But inside you something doesn't flinch, because now you've heard the bell that never rings. And you know not all silence is empty. Some silence is full. When the master was late, the hall is full. Mats laid out in precise rows, incense curling like lazy questions into the rafters. You sit with the others waiting. The master is late. 10 minutes pass, then 20. A few students glance at the door, then at each other. Someone shifts, coughs, adjusts their robe. A fly lands on your hand. You let it stay. Still, no master. Whispers begin. Did he forget? Should we start without him? But the senior monk gestures for silence. So you sit. 30 minutes, then 40. Your thoughts grow restless, then quiet, then restless again. Time expands, then collapses. Finally, the door opens. The master enters, robes dusted with morning light. He bows, takes his seat, and says nothing. No apology, no explanation, just silence. And then, in the gentlest voice, he asks, "What did you learn while I was gone?" No one answers. He smiles. Time teaches, he says, if you don't interrupt it. He gazes at each of you slowly. When I arrived late, some of you grew annoyed, some confused, some bored, some calm. The same moment, many truths. He pauses. Your reaction revealed your training. You lower your eyes, not in shame, in recognition. He continues. Zen does not happen when the teacher speaks. It happens when nothing does. And you listen anyway. That evening you sit longer than usual in the garden. The bell rings late. The tea is delayed. A cloud covers the moon. You do not fidget. You do not ask. You wait not for something to arrive, but for nothing to leave. And you realize, sometimes the lesson is not in the teaching. Sometimes the lesson is in the waiting. The wind has no shadow. It is dawn, but the sun is shy, hiding behind layers of mist. The garden is hushed. You sit near the edge of the koi pond, watching ripples spread outward from a single falling leaf. A monk, the one known for writing poems that are never shared, appears beside you. He doesn't speak. He simply takes out a small slip of paper, folds it once, then sets it on the water. It floats, then turns, then sinks. He nods as if satisfied, and says softly, "The wind has no shadow." You turn to him. "What does that mean?" He smiles. "Can you point to where the wind is?" You hold up a hand. "Here, maybe. I can feel it." He nods. "And what color is it?" You laugh gently. It has none. And yet he continues. It moves everything. Trees, smoke, hearts. You sit with that, watching the pond, still unsure. He says thought is like wind. You feel it, but it leaves no mark, no footprint. You believe it has shape, but try to hold it and it vanishes. You remember the storm inside your mind from last week, a sudden fear that came and went like weather. Real in the moment. Gone without a trace. He adds, "Don't chase the shadow. Breathe the breeze." Then he leaves, not in ceremony, just with light steps as though the wind carried him. Later, as you walk among the trees, you try to see the wind, really see it. But all you find are movements, a blade of grass, bending a robe, fluttering a breath, deepening. You realize then, the wind doesn't need a shadow. Its truth is in what it touches, and so is yours. A single leaf fell. Autumn deepens. The maple trees blush deeper than before a red that feels ancient, like the quiet voice of the season saying its final words. You're sweeping the steps near the main hall when a single leaf detaches itself from a high branch. It doesn't drop quickly. It drifts, floats, spins, takes its time. You pause and watch it fall. It lands on the stone quietly, without protest, without fear. Something inside you stills. Later during tea, you ask the elder monk, "Do we really come back after death?" He holds the teacup with both hands and says, "Sometimes." "But where do we go?" He sips slowly, then replies, "Where did the leaf go?" You frown. "It's right there." He nods. "Exactly." You begin to understand. The leaf has not disappeared. It has changed places, changed form. Part of a story without an ending, only transitions. From tree to air, from air to earth, from earth to soil, to root, to tree again. The monk sets his cup down. We call it death. But the leaf never complains. You think of the people you've lost, the chapters of yourself you've shed, the versions of you that once breathed so fully and now live only in memory. Were they lost, or did they fall and become something else? That night you stand under the same tree. Another leaf falls. You do not reach for it. You let it land. You bow to it, not because it was grand, but because it was complete. In that moment, you feel something deep and quiet whisper through your body. Not sadness, not joy, but peace. A kind of knowing that does not need to be spoken. A kind of end that is not an ending at all. Just one breath, one fall, one becoming. Tea with emptiness. You're invited to tea by a monk, known for saying very little and pouring even less. His room is sparse, one mat, one shelf, one kettle. Nothing extra, not even a window curtain. He gestures for you to sit. You bow and settle onto the cushion. He pours your cup first, but only halfway. You wait. He does not top it up. Instead, he pours his own the same half a cup. Then sits quietly, hands resting on his knees. You glance at the cup, confused. He says nothing. Finally, you ask, why not fill it? He lifts his cup. Because emptiness is part of the flavor. You sip. The tea is warm, subtle, soft, and yet something inside it feels different, spacious, as if the quiet above the liquid was also part of what you drank. He watches you, not with expectation but with stillness. Then he says, "Too much tea and you cannot taste. Too many thoughts and you cannot hear." You sit in silence holding the cup. The half-empty space becomes louder than the liquid. A kind of silence you can sip. You realize fullness is not always better. Sometimes it's heavy, sometimes it's blind. But space that allows movement, that allows breath. He says the heart too must be half-empty. Otherwise, how can anything new enter? You don't finish your tea. Not because it isn't enough, but because it already is. Later, back in your room, you remove an item from your shelf, a book you don't reread, a trinket that holds no more meaning. You leave the space blank. It looks like nothing, but it feels like room. You smile and whisper to yourself, "I'm beginning to taste the emptiness." The tiger and the strawberry. You come across a hand-painted scroll in the hallway outside the abbot's quarters. Its faded edges curled with time. The image is simple, a man hanging from a cliff by one hand. Above him, a snarling tiger. Below, jagged rocks. Death from either direction. And yet the man is smiling. In his free hand, he reaches for a single wild strawberry growing from the cliffside. You study the image for a long time. It unsettles you. Later you ask the abbot, "Why is he smiling?" He gestures for you to sit, pours tea, then says because the strawberry was real. You wait for more, but that's all. So you sit with it, and then something dawns. The tiger is fear. The fall is death. But neither is happening right now. What is happening? The strawberry, and for one breath, for one taste, the moment is alive. You begin to think about all the times you've clung to worry about what might come or what might return. How often joy was offered to you, not grand, just simple, but you were too busy bracing for something worse. You remember a morning last winter, warm bread, a friend's laugh, sunlight on your shoulder, mist, because your mind was somewhere else. And now you realize the strawberry doesn't last. But neither does the tiger. You bow to the scroll. Later that day, walking along the outer path, you find a patch of wild berries near the stone wall. You kneel. Pick one. Taste. Sweet. Not perfect, not eternal, just sweet. And in that sweetness, something opens. Not because the danger is gone, but because you're no longer waiting for it to pass before allowing joy. Where did the ox go? It's the hour before dusk, and you find yourself near the stables, not to work, but to walk. A monk sits by the fence, sketching quietly in the dirt with a stick. As you draw closer, you realize he's outlining a familiar scene, a figure chasing an ox. You recognize it. The 10 ox herding pictures. An old Zen teaching. He pauses and looks up. Which stage are you in? You hesitate. He smiles. That's the trick, the ox is never really gone. He sweeps the drawing away with one stroke. Only your seeing is. You sit beside him. He begins to draw again, this time not a figure or an ox, but a circle. Empty. Smooth. When I started, he says, I wanted to catch the ox. Tame it. Ride it home. But now. He taps the circle. I wonder if there was ever an ox at all. You look out at the fields. The wind moves through the grass like a hidden animal, soft and invisible. What does the ox even represent, you ask? He shrugs. The mind, the self, the search. Take your pick. You remember how you once approached meditation, like a mission to improve, to conquer, to become calm. Now you're not sure what you're trying to catch anymore. And oddly, you don't miss the chase. He hands you the stick. Draw your own. You stare at the dirt. After a while, you draw nothing. Just sit there, letting the circle remain blank. He nods. Sometimes the path is full of images, metaphors, effort. And sometimes it's just sitting beside another human being as the light fades. The ox may be gone, or never was. But peace doesn't need proof, only presence. A monk's last word. The temple is quieter than usual today. People speak in hushed tones. Incense lingers longer in the corridors. Even the crows in the courtyard seem to have nothing to say. An old monk, the oldest, is nearing the end of his days. He lies beneath a thin blanket, eyes closed, breath shallow, like wind through reeds. His room is simple, one mat, one bowl, a single scroll, with no writing. You are invited to sit with him. At first you feel awkward. There's nothing to do, nothing to offer, just sit. Just breathe beside someone whose breaths are numbered. Hours pass. Others come and go. Some cry, some bow, some sit in silence. But the monk, remains still, until suddenly near twilight his eyes open, just slightly. He looks at you, not through you, not beyond you, at you, with the kind of gaze that sees not the body, but the being. He smiles, then with surprising clarity he speaks. Just one word, "Here," then he exhales, and doesn't inhale again. You don't cry. Not yet. You sit. Later, you ask the abbot why here was his final word. The abbot pours tea and replies, "Because that's all that ever was. You remember the way you've lived so much of life elsewhere. In regret, in plans, in memory, in hope. And yet this monk in his final moment chose here. Not as a concept, as a home. You bow deeply beside his empty mat, not in mourning, but in recognition. The last teaching did not come in a lecture or a chant. It came in a whisper. It came in presence. It came in here, and it remains. The mirror has no reflection. There's a mirror in the main hall, old oval edged in iron. It hangs near the entrance, tilted slightly downward, as if it's shy of its own image. You stop in front of it one afternoon after a long session of sitting. Your face stares back, tired, calm, curious. You shift. It shifts. You smile. It reflects. But then a monk passes behind you and casts no image in the mirror. You blink. You turn. He's real. You saw him. He walked behind you, but nothing appeared. You call out, "Wait," and ask him, "Why didn't the mirror reflect you?" He smiles, "Because I didn't need it to." You frown, but it reflects everyone else. He nods. It reflects whatever expects to be seen. You stare at the mirror again. Your own image is still there, but it feels thinner now. Less solid. More like smoke than self. The monk continues, "When there's no one needing to be seen, there's no reflection." You sit beside the mirror, watching your own features change with every breath, every flicker of light. But beneath those changes, something stays, untouched. You begin to see what he meant. The mirror only shows what you bring to it. If you carry a story, it reflects it. If you carry fear, it returns that too. But what if you carry nothing? You close your eyes. You let go of name-roll past plans. And in that emptiness, the mirror has nothing left to show. Just silver, just surface, just space. Later, someone asks what you were doing so long by the mirror. You answer nothing, and for once, it's not a dismissal. It's the truth. Because sometimes when the self vanishes, so does the need to be seen. One breath, one life. You're sweeping fallen petals from the meditation path when the abbot passes by and pauses to watch you. He waits until you stop, then says, "Breathe." You inhale naturally. He nods. "Now pretend it's your last." You freeze. He adds, not to scare you, to see if it changes anything. You close your eyes. Inhale slowly, deeply. The air fills your chest, like warm light. Exhale gently, as if returning something precious to the world. Then silence. For a moment, that breath becomes everything. There is no past, no plan, no name. Just air becoming you. The abbot smiles. That's the doorway. You ask to what? To the life you keep skipping, he says. Later, sitting alone in the garden, you try it again. One breath, full, conscious, enough, and it is. You remember rushing through days, missing moments, like skipped stones across water, never touching the surface long enough to feel it. But this breath right now is different. It holds all of you. The monk once told you you don't get many breaths, but you get this one. You place your hand on your chest and feel it rise. This one, you let go of needing to breathe better or slower or deeper. You just let it be what it is. A gift that asks for nothing. A truth that needs no polishing. A rhythm older than thought. One breath, one life. Again and again. Not forever, but enough. Because what if this is the final breath? Would you fight it or bow to it? Tonight, as you lie down to sleep, you take one long breath, and instead of planning the next, you rest inside this one. What the rain remembered. It rains again today, not with urgency, but with softness, like memory returning through mist. You sit beneath the overhang outside the writing room, watching droplets trace paths down old wooden beams. A page lies in your lap, blank. You brought a brush, some ink, a thought you were hoping to catch. But the rain has other ideas. Each drop taps gently, not to interrupt, but to remind. A passing monk sits beside you without a word. You both watch the rain. After a long silence, he says, "The rain remembers things we forget." You turn to him. Like what? He lifts a hand. Rain patters across his palm. It remembers falling, he says, and surrender, and how not everything has to rise. You listen again. The drops hit the stone with rhythms older than language. Some are loud. Some vanish soundlessly into moss. You think of all the moments you've tried to capture joy, insight, grief like catching water with fingers, and how they slipped through not because they weren't real, but because they were never meant to be held. The monk adds, rain doesn't need to last. It only needs to arrive. You close your eyes and let the sound fill you, not like music, but like presence. Nothing to solve, nothing to grasp. Just this falling. You remember childhood rains, heartbreak, rains, the quiet drizzle during the funeral, the wild storm, the night you finally let go. The rain was there for all of it. And now it is here again, not new, but returning. Not for your attention, but for your stillness. You do not write on the page. You just let it rest beside you, soaking slightly at the edges. Because today, the rain is writing for you. A pathless path. Today's walk leads nowhere in particular. You step beyond the familiar stone trails, beyond the shaded pines and marked garden loops, into the soft, untamed brush behind the monastery. There is no path here, just scattered twigs, moss-covered rocks, and the invitation of uncertainty. At first, your body hesitates. It wants a trail, a pattern, a direction. It searches for footprints to follow, for signs to trust. But there are none. Only earth, only choice. You continue walking. The ground is uneven. You stumble once, then again. But with each step, something loosens, not in your muscles, but in your mind. You stop needing to know what's ahead. You start noticing what's here. A spider web catching dew like pearls. The hush of wind bending tall grass. The sound of your own breath, not striving, just existing. Then beneath an old tree, you see an elder monk sitting on a low stump, eyes closed, hands resting. You approach. He doesn't open his eyes. You ask, "Am I lost?" He smiles without smiling. Only if you believe in a path. You sit beside him. He continues. Many people wear out their lives following maps. But Zen offers no map. Only footsteps. You sit in silence, and for the first time, being without direction doesn't feel like failure. It feels like freedom. You remember all the times you asked, "Am I doing it right?" and now realize that question was its own trap. There is no right way to walk through stillness. There is only walking. Later, when you return to the monastery, someone asks where you went. You pause and say nowhere. But what you mean is, you went where the path was not and found that you never needed one. No footprints in the snow. Snow falls overnight. By morning, the world is wrapped in silence. Every sound, breath, step, bird is softened beneath a thick white hush. You wake early, pull on your robes, and step outside. The courtyard is untouched. No footprints. Just smooth blankets of snow lying as if placed by hand. You pause at the edge, hesitant to break it. Then a monk appears behind you. He steps boldly into the white, walking slowly across the courtyard. His prints trail behind him, then stop. He turns a corner and vanishes behind the trees. You follow curious. But when you arrive at the spot where he turned, the footprints end. No wind, no fresh snow, just gone. You stand still, puzzled. Then the monk's voice drifts from behind a tree. "Looking for where I went." You nod. He steps out smiling. Then you're already behind. He brushes snow from a rock and sits. You try to leave no trace, he says. But even that is a kind of grasping. You sit beside him. He continues. We want to walk through life untouched, to love without pain, to give without loss, to help without ego. But even snow receives us. You stare at your own prints behind you. What should we do then, you ask? He scoops a handful of snow, watches it melt in his palm. Step and let melt. Later, as the sun rises and the snow begins to glisten, your prints start to soften. Their edges blur. What once marked your passage now fades into pure white. You feel no sadness, only a strange peace. You realize you were never meant to remain, only to arrive, and to go like snow, like breath, like thought, leaving nothing behind but the stillness you briefly touched, the bird that stopped flying. There is a sparrow that lives near the back gate of the temple, small, plain, unremarkable to anyone not paying attention. But the monks know it well. It once flew constantly, flitting from roof to tree to fence post, chirping as though trying to outrun its own heartbeat. Then one day it stopped. No injury, no illness. It simply chose a low branch and remained there. Not frightened, not broken, just still. You sit near it one morning, curious. It watches you with dark, steady eyes, not seeking, not fleeing, just being. A passing monk says it remembered. Remembered what you ask, how not to fly. You frown. But isn't flying what birds are meant to do? The monk kneels and gently brushes some seed from his sleeve. And isn't stillness what humans forget how to do? You sit longer with the bird who seems to breathe with the wind. It doesn't twitch or startle. It doesn't chase shadows. It doesn't demand to be more than it is. For the first time, you realize that flight isn't always freedom. Sometimes freedom is the choice not to move, not to chase, not to run. You recall the way your own thoughts used to dart around like wings in panic, grasping at meaning, escape, achievement. But now, watching this small, still creature, you sense another way. Presence without pursuit. Awareness without effort. Being without needing to become. Later, the bird hops down to the stone path, pecks once at a leaf, and flutters gently onto another branch. It still remembers how to fly. It just no longer forgets how to rest, and perhaps in watching it, you begin to remember too. Clouds have no home. The afternoon sky is a canvas of slow-moving clouds, wide, white, untethered. You sit on the temple's western terrace, sipping warm barley tea, watching them drift. One moment they resemble mountains, the next waves, then nothing in particular. A monk sits beside you and says that one looks like a dragon. You nod. Now it's gone. He smiles. That's the nature of all things. You turn toward him. Where do they go? He takes a sip of tea. Where they were never trying to stay. You sit with that. So much of your life has been about arrival, building, anchoring, naming. But these clouds, they don't arrive. They pass. They don't cling to shape or story. You ask, is it wrong to want a place to belong? He replies, not wrong, just incomplete. He leans back, letting the sun warm his face. The clouds belong to the sky, he says, but they never settle. They move not because they are lost, but because they are free. You remember the times you tried to stay in relationships, in identities, in moments you feared to lose, and how those clung forms eventually crumbled. But perhaps that wasn't failure. Perhaps that was movement. Later, you stand under the sky and raise your arms wide as if to catch a cloud. But you don't. You just let it pass above you, unchanged, ungrasped, and something in you shifts. You understand home isn't a place. It's a way of being, unbound, rooted in motion, like a cloud. No fixed shape, no fixed destination, only sky. The tea that poured itself. The day begins with a soft mist, clinging to rooftops and settling into the folds of your robe as you walk toward the tea hut. You've been invited by an old monk known not for his wisdom in words, but for the way he pours tea slowly, silently, with complete presence. You enter, he bows. There is no small talk. He places the kettle over the charcoal brazier. It begins to hiss gently like the breath of a sleeping mountain. The room smells of steamed bamboo and old wood. He lifts the teapot, tips it, and the tea flows. But there's something strange. The movement is so effortless, so natural, that you don't see him pouring. It's as if the tea pours itself. No drama, no performance, just motion born from stillness. You watch his hands, not hurried, not tense. They do not control the process. They participate in it. When he serves your cup, it's perfectly full. Not a drop more, not a drop less. He looks at you, and you realize you've been holding your breath. He smiles softly. When the mind is quiet, he says the body knows what to do. You sip. The tea is warm, grassy, alive. But more than taste it, carries presence, the feeling of something given but not forced. You ask, how long did it take you to learn to pour like that? He chuckles, I stopped trying. You think of all the times you forced effort in conversations, decisions, even in meditation. The grip of doing, the strain of trying to get it right. But here the lesson is clear. When the self steps aside, life flows, just like tea. And in that flow, you don't lose yourself. You return to it. In the middle of the mountain, you hike up the narrow trail behind the temple where the moss thickens and the light filters green through layers of pine. The path is steep but quiet, and the air smells of rain that hasn't fallen yet. Your intention is to reach the summit, to sit at the peak, to see the valley stretch below like a scroll unrolled. But midway, the trail opens into a small clearing. There's a flat stone, a patch of sun, and the sound of wind threading through trees. You stop, just for a moment, but that moment deepens. The stillness here is different. It doesn't pull you forward. It doesn't urge you upward. It says, this is also the mountain. You sit, birds pass above. Somewhere water drips from a rock. Nothing moves fast, but everything is moving. A memory stirs of rushing toward goals, believing that peace waited at the end of achievement. And here you are, not at the top, and yet you feel whole. A monk once told you halfway is often more than enough. You didn't understand then. You do now. The trees do not ask to be taller. The moss does not reach. The breeze does not climb. They simply are in place, complete in this midpoint. Later, as the sun shifts and your shadow stretches long, you rise. You could keep going, or you could return, but it doesn't matter, because something in you has already arrived. At the middle, at enough, at the quiet truth that waiting for, then only hides what is already here. The space between the notes. Evening practice begins with a flute. Not a performance, just a monk in the outer hall playing a bamboo shakuhachi. The notes rise into the dimming light like breath shaped into sound. You stop outside to listen. The melody is simple, spare, but what holds you isn't the notes. It's the silence between them. That pause, long, uncertain, sacred, is what gives the sound meaning. Like space around words or the hush before a bell. A younger monk steps beside you and whispers, "The notes are just footprints." The silence is where the music lives. You nod. You think of how life often rushes from one thing to the next. Words stacked over words, thoughts over thoughts. Rarely do we linger in the quiet between. And yet isn't that where peace waits? When the flute ends, the silence stretches. No one claps. No one speaks. The quiet is the applause. Later that night, you reflect on your own life, the need to explain, to fill the gap, to say something when nothing was needed. And now you wonder, what if the gap was the gift? You sit on your mat, not meditating in effort, but simply not doing. The pause between this breath and the next. No need to understand. No need to continue the tune. Just space. And somehow it sings louder than sound. He who listens deeply, he doesn't speak. Not out of vow or inability or ritual, he simply doesn't feel the need. They call him the listener. When people visit the temple with sorrow, confusion, or joy, they cannot carry alone, they find him. Not in the lecture hall, not in the zendo. Usually beneath the ginkgo tree near the southern wall, seated with his back straight, hands resting, open eyes soft. You're sent to him one morning, not because something is wrong, but because something inside you feels crowded. You bow, he nods. You sit. At first you don't know what to say, so you don't. You sit in silence beside someone who makes silence feel full. Eventually words come. You speak of things you didn't know you were holding, old doubts, unspoken guilt, the ache of not knowing your place. He never nods impatiently, never tries to fix, never shifts his gaze. He listens, fully, kindly, entirely. And in that listening, something softens in you. The more you speak, the less urgent your pain becomes. It begins to unravel not through explanation, but through the space of being heard. After a while, you fall silent. He bows, and that's it. Later, you ask a senior monk, "Why doesn't he speak?" She smiles, "Because words are heavy, and most of us are already carrying too much." You realize then listening is not waiting to respond. It is making room. The listener has taught you more in his stillness than lectures ever have. Now when others speak to you, you try to follow his way. Less fixing, more hearing, less I know, more I'm here. Because sometimes what heals is not what is said, but what is gently allowed to be. Why the sutra burned. You find the smoke first curling like question marks into the pale morning sky. Then the scent, faint wood, dry paper, and something deeper, like reverence undone. In the clearing behind the meditation hall, an old monk kneels before a small fire. Beside him a scroll lies in the flames, ink curling words fading. You gasp. That was a sutra. He nods. Calm. Not cruel. Not careless. You step forward unsure. But why burn it? He answers without looking up, because I read it. You blink. Isn't that reason to keep it? He shakes his head. It gave me the truth. Now I let the truth give me back. You sit confused, watching the flames eat each syllable. A sacred teaching turned to ash. Later, as the fire dies and the embers dim, the monk gathers the ash into a small bowl. He sprinkles it around the roots of a plum tree nearby. For blossoms, he says. You remain quiet the rest of the day, unsure how to feel. That night, you recall a teaching. When the finger points to the moon, don't cling to the finger. You begin to see. The sutra was the finger. The flame was the release. The moon remains. You realize how much you've clung to phrases, to rituals, to even your own moments of clarity. Trying to preserve the sacred. But maybe the sacred doesn't need preservation. Maybe it needs trust, that it will return. In silence. In spring blossoms. In breath. And maybe truth. Like the plum tree blooms best in ground that has let go of what it no longer needs. Just this, nothing more. The abbot is raking sand in the rock garden's slow arcs, even lines one stroke at a time. You offer to help. He hands you a second rake without a word. Together you move. After a while, your mind drifts. Are the lines too close? Should they curve more? What does it mean? Is there a pattern to follow? The abbot pauses and looks at you gently. Rake, he says. You blink? I am. He nods. Then only rake. The simplicity strikes you. No analysis. No hidden lesson. Just this rake sand breath. You return to your task. With each movement, the desire to do it right softens into simply doing. The pattern matters less than the presence. Afterward, you sit together at the edge of the garden. He pours tea motions for you to hold your cup, then says this moment nothing more. Not before, not after. You sip slowly. No stories, no teaching. Just warmth in your hands and a breeze brushing your sleeves. He continues. The mind seeks meaning, but being doesn't need a reason. You think of how often you ask what's next, as if the present were only a hallway to something better. But here in this moment of no achievement, no conclusion, there is peace. Do you understand now? The abbot asks. You nod. I think so. He smiles. No need to think. Just sit. So you do. Just this. This breath. This sip. This stillness. Nothing more. And in that nothing, you feel everything. The tree that bows. At the far edge of the temple grounds stands an old persimmon tree. Crooked weathered its trunk, bent low toward the earth, as if in permanent reverence. No one knows how long it has stood there, but every monk seems to treat it with silent respect. No one leans on it. No one picks its fruit without a bow. You find yourself drawn to it one morning. The sky is overcast. The wind hums gently through its leaves. You sit beneath it and run your fingers over the rough bark. Deep grooves, old scars, moss collecting in the creases. The tree says nothing, but somehow it speaks. A monk passes by and pauses. She bows, he says, to what you ask. He smiles, to everything. Later you learn the story. A storm decades ago snapped the tree's spine. Most thought it would die, but it didn't. It adapted, bent low, found light sideways, and lived. It no longer reaches for the sky. It no longer tries to be tall. It simply grows where it can and bows where it must. You return each day for a week, sitting in its shade, feeling something in yourself soften. You think of your own storms, the ones that bent you, the ones you thought you couldn't live through. But here you are, not as straight, not as proud, but perhaps more rooted. One evening, before returning to your room, you place your forehead gently against the trunk. You do not ask for wisdom. You simply bow, and in doing so, the tree bows with you, not because it moves, but because you finally feel how low it has already come to meet you. When even Zen is let go, the visiting monk arrives without ceremony. No entourage, no robe of distinction. Just a weathered satchel, a smile that asks nothing, and eyes like open sky. He's invited to speak during evening tea. You expect a teaching, a story, perhaps a parable with layered meaning. Instead, he says nothing for a while, just drinks his tea as if it were the first and last cup he'll ever have. Then softly he says, "Eventually, you must let go of even Zen." The room stills. He continues, "If Zen becomes another identity, something to be good at, something to wear, something to name, then it becomes another shadow. You shift slightly. Something in you resists, and something else exhales." He smiles gently. At first, we practice to calm the mind, then to see through it. But in the end, we drop even the practice and simply live. Someone asks, "But isn't that still Zen?" He nods, but now it doesn't need the name. Later, you find him outside under the plum tree, humming a tune without melody, carving a flute from a crooked branch. You ask, "Did you study long?" He laughs, "Too long." You sit beside him. He hands you a piece of bark. Make something or don't. Both are enough. That night, lying in bed, you feel an odd lightness, like taking off a coat you forgot you were wearing, like no longer needing to defend what you believe, because belief itself has loosened its grip. You smile, not because you understand more, but because there is finally nothing to prove. Even Zen has become wind through your fingers, and you are still here. Silence beyond silence. You rise before the bell today. No one else is stirring. The corridors are shadows. The tatami cool beneath your feet. You move through the temple like a breath, quiet, unseen, present. You walk to the meditation hall but pass it by. Through the gate, down the gravel path, out past the last cedar tree where the forest begins to forget it ever met people. There among the dew-touched leaves and stone you sit. No cushion, no bell, no beginning, and slowly the silence unfolds, not as absence but as presence. Not the silence of emptiness, but of fullness without need. There are no teachings now, no riddles, no thoughts to untangle. You listen and nothing speaks, yet everything responds. A crow calls in the distance, then stillness again. But now even the stillness has no boundary. The breath is no longer yours. The body, no longer you. There is only sitting, only forest, only this. No watcher, no one to awaken, no one to return. Just this vast quiet beyond language, beyond shape, beyond Zen. And into that silence you dissolve, not in drama, but like mist when the sun rises, not as ending, but as return, not lost, but home. The quiet temple invites you to pause, to let go of all the noise of the world. Its stillness is not just the absence of sound, but the presence of something deeper, an invitation to return to yourself. Zen teaches us that peace is not something we need to search for. It is already here in the silence, in the simplicity of the present moment. Just as the temple remains still amidst the hustle of the world, so too can we find stillness within, regardless of what's happening around us. Imagine stepping into this temple, your footsteps soft on the stone floor, feeling the weight of the world fall away with each step. You are not in a hurry, nor are you seeking anything. You are simply here, breathing, present, surrounded by the serene quiet of the temple. A Zen master once said, "The temple is where you leave your thoughts at the door, and where the door leads you to your true self." As you lie here, notice how your mind may want to wander, but instead simply let it rest in the stillness, like the calm air inside the temple. If peace is not something you must reach, but something you already are, what happens when you let go of all striving? Rest now in the peaceful silence of this moment, the quiet temple of your mind. The unseen path stretches before you, inviting you to walk it without fear, without expectation. In Zen, the way is often not visible to the eyes, but felt in the quiet heart, experienced in the stillness of being. You do not need to know where this path leads. You simply need to walk it step by step with presence and patience. Imagine yourself walking through a dense forest, the sunlight filtering through the trees, casting dappled shadows on the ground. The path is not obvious, yet you trust your steps, knowing each one brings you closer to peace, no matter how winding or unclear the journey. A Zen master once said, "The path reveals itself in the act of walking." You do not have to worry about the end, only about being fully here in each moment, each step, each breath. As you lie here, now reflect on your own path. Though you may not always see the way clearly, can you trust that each step you take is part of the unfolding? What happens when you let go of the need to see the whole path and simply focus on walking? If silence speaks, what guidance does it offer? Rest now in the trust that the unseen path leads you exactly where you need to go. The flower in the field stands quietly beautiful and humble in its simplicity. Zen teaches us that beauty is not found in grand gestures, but in the quiet presence of life, just as the flower blooms in the field, unnoticed, yet perfect in its own way. Imagine walking through a wide, open field. The flowers sway gently in the breeze, each one unique, each one an expression of the earth's quiet grace. The beauty of the flower does not demand attention. it simply is. A Zen story tells of a monk who on his daily walk stopped to admire a single flower growing in a forgotten corner of the garden. He smiled and said, "In the simplicity of this flower, the whole universe is revealed. As you lie here now, feel yourself becoming like that flower rooted in the present moment, radiating peace without needing to be seen or acknowledged. Can you rest in the simplicity of just being like the flower in the field? What would happen if you allowed yourself to simply exist fully and peacefully, without striving for anything? If silence answers, what might it show you about your own quiet beauty? Rest now like the flower in the peace of simplicity and presence. The sound of the waves reaches you gentle and rhythmic like the breath of the earth. Zen teaches us to listen to the flow of life, much like we listen to the waves, effortless, steady, and ever-present. Imagine sitting on a quiet beach, the waves rolling in and out in perfect harmony. Each wave comes and goes, never holding on, never resisting. They simply follow the rhythm of the ocean, each one a soft reminder of life's natural ebb and flow. A Zen story tells of a monk who sat by the sea listening to the waves, each sound bringing him deeper into peace. He realized that the waves were not separate from the ocean. They were the ocean itself in constant movement, yet always at rest in its depths. As you lie here now, notice how your breath mirrors the waves rising and falling, coming and going, each one carrying you deeper into stillness. You do not need to force the breath, only to let it flow like the waves naturally and effortlessly. What happens when you stop struggling with the flow of life and allow yourself to move with it like the waves? If silence speaks, what does it say about the nature of ease and surrender? Rest now carried by the gentle rhythm of the waves in the calm of the ocean's embrace. The art of sitting quietly is not just the absence of movement, but the presence of full awareness. Zen teaches us that stillness is a practice, a way of being fully alive in the moment without distraction or hurry. Imagine yourself sitting in a peaceful garden, the air soft and cool, the ground solid beneath you. There is no need to do anything, no need to strive. Simply sitting, breathing, and being, this is the art. A Zen master once said, "To sit is to enter the realm of the present." In sitting, we are fully alive. In the quiet of this moment, you can feel the truth of those words. Each breath fills you with awareness, each moment a small eternity. As you lie here now, imagine yourself sitting peaceful, centered, still. There is no rush, no need for anything to change. You are simply here, fully present, resting in the peace of the moment. What happens when you allow yourself to be fully still, letting go of all the doing and simply resting in being? If silence speaks, what wisdom does it carry to you? Rest now quietly, with full awareness of the simple art of being. The open sky invites you to expand your awareness beyond the boundaries of thought. Just as the sky stretches endlessly above, holding all that comes and goes. Zen teaches us that the mind is like the sky, vast, open, and without limitation. Thoughts are like clouds passing by, but the sky remains unchanged, expansive, and free. Imagine standing in a wide open field, looking up at the endless sky above you. The clouds float by effortlessly, each one unique, yet all part of the same vast sky. You are part of this sky too, your thoughts and feelings like passing clouds, but your true nature is the sky itself. A Zen story tells of a monk who, while meditating under the stars, realized that the vast sky held no judgment, no attachment. It simply was. In that moment, he understood that his true nature was as vast and open as the sky, free and unbound. As you lie here now, allow your mind to expand like the sky, wide open and limitless. Notice the thoughts that come and go, but do not cling to them. Let them pass like clouds drifting across the horizon. What happens when you allow yourself to rest in the vast openness of your mind? If silence speaks, what wisdom does the sky hold for you? Rest now like the sky, free, expansive, and at peace. The distant mountain stands still, its peak touching the sky, a symbol of unwavering peace. Zen teaches that, like the mountain, we too can find inner stillness no matter the storms that swirl around us. Imagine yourself standing at the base of the mountain, gazing upward. The mountain is unmoved, its vastness reaching into the clouds, solid and unshaken. Everything around it may change, the weather, the seasons, the day itself, but the mountain remains. A Zen master once said, "Be like the mountain, unmoved by the winds of life." This stillness is not a withdrawal from life, but a presence that remains calm no matter what happens. As you lie here, imagine yourself as the mountain. Your mind may swirl with thoughts, but like the mountain, you stand firm in your center, grounded in peace. Feel the strength of stillness beneath you, the quiet power of simply being. What would it feel like to be like the mountain, unshaken and steady, if silence holds the answer? What does it teach you about peace? Rest now as the mountain rests, strong, still, and at ease. The silence of the snow is like the stillness of a deep meditation, calm, pure, and peaceful. Zen teaches that silence is not empty but full of presence, offering a space where clarity can arise. Imagine yourself in the midst of a gentle snowfall. The snowflakes fall softly, each one unique, yet together they create a quiet blanket that covers everything. In this stillness, the world seems to pause, and you too can pause, feeling the peace that lies within silence. A Zen master once said, "The snow does not ask to be noticed. It simply falls, bringing the earth its gift." Like the snow, you too can rest in your silence, allowing it to fill you with clarity and calm without force or effort. As you lie here now, feel the quiet within like the silence of the snow. Let your thoughts settle as the snow settles upon the earth, softening everything it touches. What happens when you allow yourself to rest in silence, letting everything else fall away? If silence speaks, what wisdom does it carry? Rest now in the peaceful silence of the snow, quiet and still deeply at ease. The joy of being present is simple yet profound. It is found not in the future or the past, but right here, right now. Zen teaches us that joy arises naturally when we let go of our striving and simply rest in the moment. Imagine standing in the middle of a sun-dappled field, the air warm, the ground steady beneath your feet. There is no rush, no agenda, just the beauty of the present moment, filling you with quiet joy. A Zen master once said, "To be present is to be whole, to live fully in this moment. And in this moment, all is complete." You are not waiting for anything, nor do you need to be anywhere else. This is the pure joy of simply being, of breathing, of existing fully in the here and now. As you lie here now, bring your awareness to the present. Feel the rise and fall of your breath, the weight of your body, the quiet rhythm of your heartbeat. In this simple awareness, can you find the joy that has always been here, waiting for you to notice? What does it feel like to rest in the joy of being without effort, without desire? If silence speaks, what does it say about the simplicity of joy? Rest now fully present in the joy that arises from simply being here. The dance of the leaves is a graceful reminder of life's constant change. Zen teaches us that like leaves carried by the wind, we too are part of a flowing, ever-changing dance. Imagine watching leaves swirl gently in a breeze, each one moving unpredictably yet harmoniously with the others. They do not resist the wind. They flow with it, embracing the dance of life. A Zen story tells of a monk who observed the falling leaves and realized that life's beauty lies in its impermanence and movement. He learned to let go of attachments and to dance with the changes instead of fighting them. As you lie here now, imagine yourself as one of those leaves, free light moving with the natural flow. Let go of resistance, worries, and expectations. Allow yourself to be carried gently by life's breeze. What would it mean to embrace your own dance of change? If silence answers, what will it reveal about your path? Rest now in the gentle dance of leaves moving freely and peacefully with the wind. The deep well of stillness lies beneath the surface of your thoughts and emotions. Zen teaches that no matter how restless the mind becomes, a vast calm remains beneath, always accessible. Imagine a quiet well, its waters clear and cool, untouched by the ripples above. You can lower yourself gently into this well, resting in the pure stillness that resides within. A Zen master once said, "Though the surface is disturbed, the depths remain peaceful." As you lie here now, allow yourself to descend into this well of calm. Feel the coolness and serenity washing over you, soothing every part of your being. If you listen deeply, what does this well of stillness offer you? If silence speaks, what message does it bring? Rest now in the deep well of stillness, grounded, peaceful, and whole. The final breath before sleep carries you gently into rest. It is a soft surrender, a letting go of the waking mind, and a welcome into the quiet of the night. Zen teaches that breath is the bridge between wakefulness and sleep, a natural rhythm that guides you into the deep stillness within. Imagine your breath slowing, becoming lighter and more subtle, like a candle's flame flickering softly before fading into darkness. A story tells of a master who said, "The last breath is not the end, but the beginning of union with the infinite." As you lie here, feel your breath become gentle and peaceful, carrying you effortlessly towards sleep. If you release completely, what will the silence of night hold for you? If no words remain, what does the quiet teach? Rest now in this final breath, safe, whole, and free. The quiet temple invites you to pause, to let go of all the noise of the world. Its stillness is not just the absence of sound, but the presence of something deeper, an invitation to return to yourself. Zen teaches us that peace is not something we need to search for. It is already here in the silence, in the simplicity of the present moment. Just as the temple remains still amidst the hustle of the world, so too can we find stillness within, regardless of what's happening around us. Imagine stepping into this temple, your footsteps soft on the stone floor, feeling the weight of the world fall away with each step. You are not in a hurry, nor are you seeking anything. You are simply here, breathing, present, surrounded by the serene quiet of the temple. A Zen master once said, "The temple is where you leave your thoughts at the door, and where the door leads you to your true self." As you lie here, notice how your mind may want to wander, but instead simply let it rest in the stillness like the calm air inside the temple. If peace is not something you must reach, but something you already are. What happens when you let go of all striving? Rest now in the peaceful silence of this moment, the quiet temple of your mind. The unseen path stretches before you, inviting you to walk it without fear, without expectation. In Zen, the way is often not visible to the eyes, but felt in the quiet heart, experienced in the stillness of being. You do not need to know where this path leads. You simply need to walk it step by step with presence and patience. Imagine yourself walking through a dense forest, the sunlight filtering through the trees, casting dappled shadows on the ground. The path is not obvious yet. You trust your steps, knowing each one brings you closer to peace, no matter how winding or unclear the journey. A Zen master once said, "The path reveals itself in the act of walking. You do not have to worry about the end, only about being fully here in each moment, each step, each breath." As you lie here now, reflect on your own path. Though you may not always see the way clearly, can you trust that each step you take is part of the unfolding? What happens when you let go of the need to see the whole path and simply focus on walking? If silence speaks, what guidance does it offer? Rest now in the trust that the unseen path leads you exactly where you need to go. The flower in the field stands quietly beautiful and humble in its simplicity. Zen teaches us that beauty is not found in grand gestures, but in the quiet presence of life, just as the flower blooms in the field, unnoticed yet perfect in its own way. Imagine walking through a wide open field. The flowers sway gently in the breeze, each one unique, each one an expression of the earth's quiet grace. The beauty of the flower does not demand attention. It simply is. A Zen story tells of a monk who, on his daily walk, stopped to admire a single flower growing in a forgotten corner of the garden. He smiled and said, "In the simplicity of this flower, the whole universe is revealed." As you lie here now, feel yourself becoming like that flower, rooted in the present moment, radiating peace without needing to be seen or acknowledged. Can you rest in the simplicity of just being like the flower in the field? What would happen if you allowed yourself to simply exist fully and peacefully, without striving for anything? If silence answers, what might it show you about your own quiet beauty? Rest now like the flower in the peace of simplicity and presence. The harmony of the elements reminds you that all things earth, air, water, and fire work together in perfect balance. Zen teaches that this balance is reflected within you, where every part of your being has its role in creating peace. Imagine the wind gently rustling the leaves, the steady ground beneath your feet, the cool water flowing nearby, and the warm light of the sun. Each element is distinct, yet they dance together in harmony. A Zen story tells of a master who listened closely to the natural world and understood that true harmony arises when differences are embraced. As you lie here, sense the elements within you and around you, each contributing to the peaceful whole. If you could rest in this natural balance, what peace would arise? If silence answers, what wisdom would it share? Rest now immersed in the harmony of the elements, steady and whole. The stillness of the temple invites you to find a sanctuary within yourself. Zen teaches that this sacred space is not distant or hidden, it is accessible wherever you choose to rest. Imagine entering a quiet temple free from noise and distraction, where time slows and breath deepens. Here, peace is not earned, but discovered in simple presence. A story tells of a monk who found his greatest refuge not outside, but inside in the quiet temple of his own mind. As you lie here now, let your breath and body become the temple's walls, steady, silent, welcoming. What happens when you rest fully in this inner stillness? If silence speaks, what sanctuary does it reveal? Rest now in the stillness of your own temple, safe and serene. The hidden treasure lies not in riches or possessions, but deep within your own heart. Zen teaches that true wealth is the peace and wisdom quietly waiting inside. Imagine searching high and low only to realize the treasure you seek is already yours, pure and unchanging. It is found in moments of calm, clarity, and compassion. A Zen master once said, "Look within, and you will discover the priceless gem of your true nature." As you lie here now, turn your attention inward and notice this treasure shining softly beneath your thoughts. If you rest in this, knowing what riches fill your being. If silence answers, what gift does it bring? Rest now, cradled by the hidden treasure of your own peace. The mountain's patience teaches you to endure with grace and quiet strength. Zen reminds us that, like the mountain's stillness and steadfastness are the foundation of true peace. Imagine the mountain standing unmoved through storms and seasons, unshaken by winds, or time, grounded in calm presence. A story tells of a monk who learned from the mountain's patience, understanding that awakening unfolds in its own time, without rush or force. As you lie here now, embody this patience within your breath and body. Let tension dissolve, knowing that peace comes gently with time. If you rest in patience, what calmness arises? If silence speaks, what strength does it offer? Rest now, steady and patient, like the mountain itself. The fragrance of the pine tree grounds you in the present moment with its fresh, calming scent. Zen teaches that nature's gifts help us reconnect with peace and simplicity. Imagine breathing in the crisp scent of pine, feeling it fill your lungs and calm your mind. This fragrance carries the wisdom of resilience and renewal. A Zen story tells of a monk who found comfort and clarity beneath the towering pines, letting their steady presence restore his spirit. As you lie here now, invite the pine's scent into your awareness, softening your thoughts and calming your heart. If you let this fragrance settle within, what peace blooms? If silence answers, what gentle lesson does it share? Rest now, wrapped in the soothing fragrance of the pine. The space between breaths holds a subtle and profound stillness. Zen teaches that in this pause the mind finds rest and the heart reconnects with peace. Imagine the gentle pause as you shift from inhale to exhale, a quiet space where nothing is forced and everything is possible. A Zen master said, "It is in the space between breaths that awakening occurs." As you lie here now, feel this space widen with each breath, deepening your calm. What emerges when you rest in this pause? If silence speaks, what truth does it share? Rest now in the tender space between breaths, wide open and peaceful. The quiet of the moonlit night invites you into deep calm and reflection. Zen teaches that moonlight reveals the hidden stillness within all things. Imagine lying beneath a silver moon, the world hushed and bathed in soft light. In this gentle glow, worries fade and peace deepens. A Zen story tells of a monk who found clarity under the moon's gaze, seeing his thoughts pass like shadows on the ground. As you lie here now, let the moonlight's quiet fill your heart with stillness. Allow your mind to soften and your breath to slow. What wisdom comes in the silence of the moonlit night? If silence speaks, what does it reveal? Rest now, embraced by the moon's gentle quiet. The sacredness of the present moment is a doorway to peace and joy. Zen teaches that each moment fully embraced is holy and whole. Imagine holding this moment gently in your hands, without grasping, without judgment, simply as it is. A Zen master said the present is the only sanctuary. As you lie here now, rest fully in this moment's sacredness. What happens when you honor the present as sacred? If silence answers, what blessing does it offer? Rest now fully here in the sacredness of now. The wisdom of silence speaks beyond words and thoughts. Zen teaches that in silence, deep understanding and peace arise naturally. Imagine sitting in a quiet room where silence is not emptiness, but a presence that fills the space with calm. A story tells of a monk who found answers not in speech but in the silence between words. As you lie here now, listen deeply to the silence within. What truths arise when you rest in silence? If silence speaks, what wisdom flows? Rest now, cradled by the profound wisdom of silence. The river of life flows steadily, carrying you gently forward. Zen teaches that life's current moves us with ease when we stop resisting. Imagine yourself floating on a calm river, the water cool and clear, guiding you effortlessly. A Zen master said, "To flow with life is to find peace." As you lie here now, surrender to the river's flow, trusting its course. What happens when you let go and flow with life? If silence answers, what does it teach? Rest now, carried by the river's gentle current. The return to oneness is the final rest, emerging with all that is. Zen teaches that beneath all separations lies unity, whole and complete. Imagine dissolving into the vast sky, becoming part of the endless expanse without boundaries or division. A Zen story tells of a monk who realized that the self was like a wave merging back into the ocean. As you lie here now, rest in this oneness, free and infinite. What does it mean to be one with all? If silence speaks, what does it reveal? You sense the healing power of presence, the quiet companionship that holds pain without resistance. This presence does not seek to fix or change, but to simply be with whatever arises, offering a refuge of calm and acceptance. When you meet suffering with gentle awareness, its sharp edges begin to soften. Like a warm light bathing a wounded place, presence soothes and restores. A Zen story tells of a monk who sat with a friend in sorrow, not offering words, but a steady presence. In that shared silence, healing blossomed naturally. As you breathe softly, invite this healing presence into your heart. Allow yourself to rest fully in the comfort of simply being. If you could hold your pain with presence tonight, what gentle relief might emerge within you? Explore the Zen view of time, not as a linear chain pulling you forward or backward, but as a fluid current flowing endlessly through the present moment. Past and future dissolve into the ever-changing now. This fluidity invites you to release worries about what has been or what might be, and rest deeply in the immediacy of experience. A Zen master once said, "Time is a river. Do not cling to the banks." As you breathe gently, imagine yourself floating freely on this river, carried by the current of now. In this flowing time, you find freedom from hurry and regret, settling into a peaceful rhythm aligned with life itself. If you could flow with time tonight, what calm might wash over your mind and heart? You engage in gentle inquiry into the nature of self, asking softly, "Who is the one who watches?" This question leads you beyond labels and stories into the mysterious space of pure awareness. Instead of seeking an answer, you rest in the question itself, allowing it to open a door to deeper presence. The self you thought you knew begins to dissolve like morning mist, revealing a vast and unbounded space. A Zen master once said, "The self is a cloud that drifts across the sky of awareness, always changing, never fixed. In this light, you become the sky itself, vast, open, and free. As you breathe slowly, rest in this openness, letting go of the need for certainty and embracing the mystery of being. If you could abide in the question of self tonight, what spaciousness might unfold within your heart? You recall the story of the moon's reflection, a gentle reminder that what you see in the mind is but a shimmering image, not the true essence. The moon shines steadily in the sky, untouched by the ripples that distort its reflection on the water below. This tale invites you to discern between appearance and reality, between passing thoughts and the unchanging presence behind them. As you breathe quietly, imagine resting as the moon itself, steady, calm, and luminous, while the waves of thought move across the surface of your mind. A Zen master once said, "Do not mistake the reflection for the moon. Return your gaze to the light." If you could rest as the moon tonight, what serene clarity might you discover within you? Cultivate stillness amid movement, learning to find calm, even as life flows around you. This stillness is not separation from action, but a peaceful center within the ever-changing dance of experience. Imagine a tree standing firm in a storm, branches swaying with the wind, roots holding steady in the earth. So too can you remain grounded amid the shifts of mind and circumstance. A Zen story tells of a master who sat calmly while the world hurried past, embodying tranquility amid chaos. As you breathe gently, invite this stillness into your being. Let your heart be like the quiet eye of the storm, steady and serene. If you could hold stillness amid movement tonight, what calm might settle softly within? You practice forgiveness, a gentle releasing of grudges and resentments that weigh heavily on the heart. Forgiveness is not about forgetting or condoning harm, but about freeing yourself from the chains of bitterness. In forgiving you, open space for healing and peace to enter. The heart softens and the mind breathes more freely, unburdened by the past. A Zen story tells of a monk who, when wronged, silently offered compassion instead of anger. His forgiveness became a powerful act of liberation for himself and others. As you breathe deeply, invite forgiveness to flow through you like a healing stream. Release any lingering hurts, allowing yourself to rest in freedom. If you could forgive tonight, what gentle light might fill the quiet corners of your soul? You return again and again to the breath, finding in its steady rhythm a refuge for the restless mind. Each inhale grounds you in the present. Each exhale releases tension and distraction. The breath is a constant friend, always accessible, quietly supporting your journey inward. When thoughts arise, you gently guide your attention back to this gentle tide flowing within. A Zen master once said, "Follow the breath, and you follow the path." In this simple practice, the mind finds clarity and calm. As you breathe slowly, now feel the breath as an anchor, steady and true, holding you in the peaceful now. If you could rest fully in your breath tonight, what ease might wash over your heart and mind? You hear the story of the empty bowl, a symbol of openness and receptivity. An empty bowl is ready to receive. It is humble and free from preconceptions, able to hold whatever comes with grace. This image invites you to let go of expectations and judgments, to rest as an open vessel, accepting life's unfolding without resistance. A Zen master once said, "When your mind is empty, it is like an empty bowl ready to receive the fullness of life." As you breathe softly, imagine yourself as this empty bowl, clear, spacious, and welcoming. If you could rest as an open bowl tonight, what newness might gently flow into your heart? You bring mindful attention to your emotions, observing each feeling as it arises without judgment or resistance. Whether joy, sadness, anger, or calm, every emotion is a visitor arriving briefly before passing on. This mindful awareness allows feelings to move freely, preventing them from overwhelming or defining you. You rest as the open sky holding clouds without clinging. A Zen story tells of a monk who watched his anger rise like a storm but did not react. Instead, he let it pass, returning to peaceful awareness. As you breathe gently, invite this spaciousness into your heart. Allow emotions to flow naturally, resting as the steady observer. If you could meet your feelings with gentle mindfulness tonight, what calm might arise within you? Reflect on the Zen teaching of non-attachment, the freeing practice of releasing, grasping, and clinging. When the mind loosens its hold on people, things, and ideas, peace arises naturally. Attachment creates tension, like holding tightly to sand that slips through your fingers. By letting go, you discover a spaciousness where joy and calm can flourish without dependence. A Zen master once said, "Hold the world lightly like a bird perching on your hand, ready to fly away at any moment." As you breathe deeply, invite non-attachment to soften your grip. Rest as the open hand, relaxed and free. If you could let go of attachment tonight, what gentle freedom might fill your heart? You hear the story of the clay pot, a vessel shaped by hands, yet defined by the empty space it holds. The pot's usefulness comes not from its form alone, but from the emptiness within, offering room to hold life's essentials. This parable teaches you that emptiness is not lack, but potential, a space for peace, clarity, and presence to grow. A Zen master once said, "The value lies in the space, not the shape." As you breathe, imagine the openness within you expanding gently, holding all experiences with ease. Rest now as the clay pot both formed and spacious, steady and welcoming. If you could embrace emptiness as your strength tonight, what calm might bloom in your heart? You practice patience in mind and heart, allowing experiences to unfold in their own time. Patience softens the grip of urgency and expectation, inviting a gentle flow to your journey inward. Like a gardener waiting for seeds to sprout, you nurture yourself with quiet presence, trusting that growth comes naturally when given space. A Zen master said patience is the root of all virtues. When you embody patience, your mind becomes a calm garden where peace can flourish. As you breathe softly, invite this patience to settle within like a steady flame, warming your soul. If you could rest patiently with yourself tonight, what gentle peace might you nurture? You deepen into the presence behind thought, the silent, watchful awareness that holds everything without judgment or attachment. This presence is constant, clear, and vast, untouched by the fleeting nature of ideas and feelings. Imagine a vast sky, limitless and open, while clouds pass by in ever-changing patterns. The presence behind thought is the sky itself, steady and serene amidst the mind's activity. A Zen master once said, "Rest as the sky. Let thoughts be the passing clouds." As you breathe, gently settle into this spacious awareness, allowing each thought to come and go without disturbance. If you could abide fully in this presence tonight, what stillness might embrace your heart? You recall the story of the wind and the bamboo, a lesson in flexibility and resilience. The bamboo bends with the wind's force, yielding without breaking, while the rigid tree snaps under pressure. This teaching invites you to soften your mind and heart, allowing life's challenges to flow through you without harm. Flexibility becomes strength, and resilience grows from gentle yielding. A Zen master said, "Be like bamboo, strong yet flexible, rooted yet adaptable." As you breathe softly, imagine yourself bending gracefully with the winds of change. If you could embrace resilience tonight, what gentle strength might rise within your soul? The one who listens. The evening deepens, and the lanterns along the monastery path flicker like distant stars reflected in water. You walk slowly beneath their light footsteps, soft on the worn stone, the hush of night settling into the corners of your thoughts. Beyond a small gate half open, you find yourself drawn into a quiet courtyard. There sits a monk, neither young nor old, his robes gently stirred by the breeze. He does not speak. He does not move. He only listens. You approach, unsure whether to bow to greet or to wait. The monk looks at you with the gentlest presence, not expecting, not retreating, just being. You sit beside him, unsure why your heart suddenly feels exposed, as if every sound and silence in your life had gathered in this one breathless moment. A leaf detaches from a nearby tree and floats downward, spinning softly as it lands beside you. You hear it. Not just the sound, the arrival, the soft surrender. You wonder how many times before you've missed such a moment, distracted by the noise of needing to understand. The monk still says nothing, and yet you begin to notice something. His stillness seems to draw the world closer. A distant owl calls once. Your own heartbeat slows. You become aware of the silence not as absence but as presence, a living, breathing space in which everything is heard. Long ago, the Zen master Umen was asked, "What is the teaching that transcends all words and phrases?" He simply replied, "Listen. No scripture. No explanation. Just a reminder of the doorway that is always open. You shift slightly a question rising in your mind, but as you begin to form it, the monk turns his eyes gently toward you and your question fades like fog in the morning light. You realize he already knows, not because he has the answer, but because he's not clinging to the need for one. To listen, truly listen, is not to prepare your reply. It is not to agree or disagree. It is not even to understand. It is to be with. To let the words or the silences come and go like the wind through trees, brushing past the soul without leaving a mark. You think of the many times someone spoke to you and you were already elsewhere, planning, judging, defending, anticipating. And you wonder, what if listening is not something you do, but something you become? In the vast temple of your heart, how many echoes remain unheard? Still, the monk does not speak. And now you are grateful. His presence is not empty, it is full of space. A space where nothing must happen, where you can sit and rest from the urgency of becoming. Nearby, a bamboo chime sings softly in the wind. You listen, not just with your ears, but with your body, your breath, your attention. And in that moment, you understand this is a teaching. This is enough. Somewhere beyond words, the monk is telling you that healing begins when you stop trying to fix yourself. That truth appears when you stop chasing it. That peace isn't found in solving, but in listening so deeply that even the problem no longer speaks. So now you just sit. You listen to the wind, to your breath, to the pause between thoughts, and perhaps, just perhaps, to something ancient in you finally allowed to speak without fear of interruption. If silence holds every answer, what question is left? The monk gently rises, bows to you once, and walks away through the shadowed trees. You remain seated, but something in you stands taller now, not from effort, from stillness, and the night listens back. Beneath the willow tree, you wander along the edge of the temple garden, where moonlight filters softly through long willow branches, swaying like sleeves in a slow, celestial dance. The path narrows until it disappears entirely, and you find yourself stepping off the stones, your feet brushing cool grass, soft and dewy from the mountain air. There, beneath the ancient willow, sits a figure wrapped in a dark robe. A soft sob escapes them, not sharp or sudden, but deep and slow, like a tide retreating after years of holding on. You hesitate, then quietly settle nearby. The figure does not turn, but you know they sense you. The wind moves. A branch leans forward, almost touching the earth. The monk, for now you see clearly that is who they are, raises their hand and brushes a tear away, not in shame, but as one might gently close a book when the story is finished. I lost my teacher, they whisper, not looking at you. But I did not lose the teaching. You sit in silence, present not with solutions, but with presence itself. The air smells of wet leaves and incense fading from the temple halls behind you. No one comes here often. This place, this willow, holds what words cannot, a sanctuary for the grief that is quiet and sacred. The monk continues, voice low and steady. He taught me that the heart must be allowed to break open, not just once, but many times. Not as failure, as a gate. You think of all the moments in your own life when sadness came and you turned away or buried it beneath distractions. You wonder if you had just sat with it like this, like the monk beneath the willow. What might it have taught you? A Zen story stirs in your memory, the tale of a student who wept in front of his master after losing his family. The master did not console him. He did not speak. He simply sat beside him all night. In the morning, when the crying had softened into breath, the master handed the student a small mirror. "Look," he said, "even tears reflect the moon. To cry is not weakness. To cry is not loss. It is water returning to its source. It is the body praying without words." The monk beside you closes their eyes. He once said, "The willow does not resist the wind, that is why it never breaks." You watch the tree above you, its leaves trembling in silence, and you begin to understand. Buddhism does not ask you to be unmoved, unfeeling, untouched. It asks you to be present, even with sorrow, especially with sorrow. In the Four Noble Truths, the Buddha named suffering not as punishment, but as a truth to be met, seen, held. The end of suffering, he taught, comes not through denial, but through deep, clear seeing, through compassion, through release. You turn inward. What grief have you been carrying unspoken, unnoticed? What sorrow do you hide even from yourself? Let it sit beside you now. Let it breathe. Like a guest who has traveled far, perhaps it too has something to say before it leaves. Above you, a single leaf lets go of its branch. It spirals downward slowly, with no resistance, no panic. It lands near the monk's knee, then continues to move just a little, carried by the breath of the earth. The monk opens their eyes again and smiles a smile not born of happiness, but of deep peace. There is no shame in crying, they say, only in forgetting that even our tears are part of the path. You stay there long after the monk has returned to the temple. You lie back in the grass, looking up at the willow, its branches now still a gentle guardian over your heart. There are no more words, no more teachings to grasp. Just the rhythm of your breath, the softness of the night, and the deep knowing that to feel is not to fall, it is to return. So if your heart stirs with sadness now, let it stir. If the tears come, let them come. If the willow bows to the wind, so may you. And when the time comes to rise again, the earth will hold you just as you are. Sandalwood ashes. The soft scent of sandalwood lingers in the air as you enter the incense hall at dawn. The first rays of sunlight slip through latticed windows, catching in the thin smoke that rises from a dying stick of incense. You watch as the final curl of smoke fades and the red ember winks out, leaving behind a small mound of fine, pale ash. You are invited to sweep it gently into a ceramic bowl, a daily ritual at the monastery. Ash from yesterday's offering, swept with care and reverence, not discarded, but gathered. A monk walks by and pauses beside you. He watches as you brush the ash, your movements slow and mindful. All things leave something behind, he says softly, but not all things cling to what they were. You pause, the small wooden brush in your hand trembling slightly. The warmth of the incense still lingers, but what remains is no longer fragrant. no longer glowing, just a quiet dust. There was once a student, the monk continues, who burned incense every morning for his teacher, even after the teacher passed away. One day the student wept and said, "I still do not know if the smoke reaches him." The abbot replied, "It was never meant to. The smoke was for you to remember the impermanence of devotion, the beauty of what ends." The brush in your hand meets the stone floor again. Ash gathers in the bowl light as air soft as snowfall, no longer what it once was, yet not lost. The Buddha's teachings often return to this: all things arise and pass away. All conditions are impermanent. Even what we hold sacred, even the incense, even the teacher, even the eye that watches them burn, and yet, does that mean they are gone? You think of someone you have lost, not recently, but whose absence lingers still like a scent remembered rather than smelled, a face in memory, a voice in dreams. You never quite knew what to do with that feeling, not sharp grief, but a kind of soft ache. The echo of presence, not the wound of absence. Now, with the ash in your hand, you begin to understand. Not everything that ends is lost. Some things dissolve into the fabric of our breath, our being. The teaching remains even if the teacher fades. The scent lingers even if the flame dies. You look up. On the altar, new incense has been placed unlit, ready. Not a replacement for what was burned, but a continuation of devotion. The monk gestures for you to light it. As you bring the flame forward, the stick catches. A thin line of smoke ascends, curling once toward the ceiling, then vanishing into the air. No beginning, no end. Just movement. Just offering. He speaks again, barely above a whisper. When we resist change, we suffer. But when we accept that all things pass, we begin to live in harmony with life, not against it. You consider your own resistance. The parts of you still clinging to what no longer is. What would it be like to let it turn to ash, to brush it gently into the bowl, not in bitterness, but with a bowed head? In Zen, even the practice of sweeping ashes is a meditation, a ritual of release, a humble reminder that nothing we love is truly owned, and nothing we release is truly lost. And so the question arises, what are you holding that is already ash? What remains unoffered, unburned, unsurrendered? As the incense burns beside you, the air grows warm. The scent deepens. Outside, a bird begins to sing. You lift the bowl of ashes and place it upon the altar, hands, steady, heart, quiet. You do not mourn what has turned to dust. You honor it. You let it rest. The lantern's final glow. Dusk gathers its robes around the mountain. Shadows lengthen soft and silver as lanterns are lit one by one along the outer walkway of the temple. Their glow is gentle, not bright, a humble offering to the night, not a challenge to it. You are asked to carry one of these lanterns to the far end of the grounds, where a solitary stone bench waits beneath an old cedar tree. The lantern is light in your hands. Its paper walls tremble in the breeze, and the candle within flickers as if it already knows the wind's secret. Each step you take is cushioned by moss and soil. The path is familiar now. These evenings have become a rhythm, a slow breath that the monastery and the mountain share together. When you reach the bench, you place the lantern down and sit beside it. Its glow bathes your hands in a warm amber hue. For a long time you simply sit watching the flame. You remember a story told by a monk of a disciple who carried a lantern into the master's quarters late one evening. The room was dark, and the master, old and nearly blind, asked, "Is the lantern still lit?" The disciple answered yes. The master replied, "Then blow it out." The disciple obeyed. In the darkness that followed, he saw something he had never noticed before: how luminous the silence was, how much he had relied on light to avoid seeing what truly lay within. Here under the cedar tree you watch your own lantern flutter. The flame dances, then steadies, then fades just a little. The wax has run low. The candle nears its end. A sense of melancholy touches you. A soft ache, like the last note of a song lingering in the air. Why do we fear the extinguishing of light? The Buddha taught that everything which arises is bound to pass. This includes joy, sorrow, life, and the flame of a single lantern. We are not asked to fight this truth. We are invited to meet it. You lean closer and feel the small warmth of the lantern against your skin. It is not heat that burns. It is the warmth of something offered freely. A light that did not resist its purpose. A glow that accepted its fading. When we speak of dignity, we often imagine strength, but there is also dignity in soft surrender. In the lamp that shines without pride and dies without struggle, the candle within flutters again. The wind has picked up slightly. You could shield it with your hand, but instead you let it be. The glow dims, flickers, dances once more, and then it goes out. No sound, no smoke, only darkness and a new kind of clarity. You do not feel fear. You do not feel loss. You feel still, as if the world itself has taken a deep, peaceful breath. The cedar above you creaks gently in the wind. The stars begin to shimmer between the branches, patient and distant. Their light too may one day fade, but not tonight. In Zen, there is a teaching. The way is not in the sky. The way is in the heart. The lantern was never the light. The flame was never the path. They were only fingers pointing soft and luminous toward what has always been. You sit a little longer, letting your eyes adjust to the dark. Shapes emerge. Shadows become outlines. You begin to see not less, but more. The path back to the temple awaits. You leave the extinguished lantern on the bench, not abandoned, but honored. It has fulfilled its purpose. It has returned to stillness. And so have you, a bowl of water offered. Morning light begins to spill across the temple courtyard, like warm tea poured into an empty bowl. You walk slowly, carrying a small ceramic vessel filled with clear, cool water drawn fresh from the mountain spring. It is smooth in your hands, steady, a simple gift meant for no one in particular. There is a quiet place just past the stone garden where travelers sometimes rest. You set the bowl there upon a worn wooden stand and wait. You're not told why, only that it is practice. To offer, to leave, to trust. You sit at a distance, letting the breeze stir through the tall grass. Time moves gently here. Bees drift lazily between blossoms. The clouds above seem in no hurry to pass. And then a figure appears at the edge of the path, a traveler, dusty and tired, robes faded by sun and journey. They pause when they see the bowl, kneel, drink, rest, and you watch quietly without rising. No words are exchanged, no names, no reward. Just need and offering meeting like two palms in Gasho. Long ago it is said the Buddha asked his disciples, "If someone is thirsty, should you wait for them to ask before offering water?" One monk answered yes, that it was respectful. Another answered no, that offering was kindness. The Buddha smiled and said, "Both are correct, but neither is love. Love offers before thought. You consider the way the bowl was given to you, the care in how it was filled, the weight balanced just so. And now it has passed through your hands into another's without transaction. Just the gentle unfolding of compassion, like a lotus opening in the dawn. There is no pride in the giving, no clinging to the gesture. In Buddhism, dana, the practice of generosity, is most pure when it is free of self. When you give not to be seen as good, not to receive thanks, not even to fulfill duty, but because something in you overflows. The bowl, after all, gives nothing of its own. It simply holds the water. A Zen koan speaks of a monk who traveled across a barren land with only a bowl and a heart of kindness. One day he encountered a starving man and gave him his last bit of rice. Another monk watching asked, "What will you eat tomorrow?" The first monk answered, "Tomorrow is not hungry yet. To give in the present is to trust the path. Not blindly, not recklessly, but with the quiet courage that says, I do not need to be full to offer. I only need to be open." You reflect inward. What in you is being held too tightly? What kindness longs to be given without reason, without promise? The traveler finishes drinking and bows toward the bowl, then toward the rising sun, and continues on the path. You rise slowly and approach the stand. The bowl is not empty. A few drops remain glistening like dew trembling with the wind. You lift it again and carry it back toward the spring. The path of giving never ends. It circles like breath in and out, receive and offer, fill and pour. And so today you offer a bowl of water. Tomorrow it may be a moment of silence. The next day simply your presence. Each is enough. Each is sacred. Each carries the light of a flame that asks for nothing in return. If your hands are open, what might pass through them? And if your heart were a bowl, what would it offer to the world without hesitation? The gate never closed. You walk the path toward the outer boundary of the monastery, where a wooden gate stands framed by stones weathered with age and moss. It is old, older than any monk here remembers, and it creaks softly when the wind moves through. But as you draw nearer, you notice something peculiar. The gate is not locked. In fact, it's not even latched. It simply stands slightly ajar, as if waiting for someone to realize what has always been true. It was never truly closed. A monk tending nearby glances up and smiles. "You've come to see the gate," he says. Everyone does eventually. You approach and place your hand on the worn wood. It's smooth where countless others have touched it. Still solid, still strong, but never meant to keep anyone out. He tells you the story of a seeker who once traveled from a distant land in search of awakening. For years, the traveler wandered through forests and across deserts, asking teachers, reading sutras, enduring hardship. Finally, exhausted and broken, he arrived at a temple at the foot of a mountain. He saw the gate and sat before it, weeping. "I've searched for so long," he whispered. "Please let me in." The master emerged and replied, "You never needed permission. The gate was never closed. The path to freedom, the monk tells you, is not guarded. It is not hidden. It is not earned through suffering or reserved for the few. It is open. Always. What bars the way is not the gate, but the belief that we are not yet ready to pass through. You sit by the open gate and listen. To the breeze in the pines, to the quiet hum of insects, to the soft movement of your own breath coming and going like travelers through a doorway. So much of life, you realize, is spent waiting for a sign, a moment, an invitation. We hold back from joy because we think we haven't earned it. We hesitate before peace, convinced we are not yet worthy. But Zen invites us to see differently. Enlightenment is not a prize behind locked doors. It is the turning of the heart toward what has always been here, in this breath, in this moment, in the sound of your footsteps on the ground. The Buddha taught that liberation is not the result of acquiring more knowledge, more virtue, more strength. It comes from letting go of the illusion that you were ever caged. Even the idea of a gate is part of the illusion. You rise and step through the opening. There is no change in the wind, no chorus of angels, no sudden transformation. And yet, something feels different. Perhaps it's not the world that shifts. Perhaps it's just the way you see it. Later, as you walk the path beyond the gate, the monk calls out, "Remember, the gate is never closed, but neither is it behind you. Every step is another gate. Every moment is another invitation." You stop and turn, looking back once. The gate stands quietly, still open, still waiting, but you do not need to return. You carry its teaching within you now, and so you walk on, free. If the gate was never shut, what part of you still waits outside? And if the door is already open, will you finally step through wind in the pine needles? The path leads you higher into the mountain forest. Pines rise tall on either side, their trunks like ancient pillars, their scent sharp and calming. The trail narrows, cushioned with years of fallen needles, and all around you is a hush, not silence, but a soft breathing of the world. Then the wind begins. It comes not in force, but in presence, a current that moves gently through the trees, brushing their branches with the lightest touch. And then you hear it, the music of the pines. 1,000 needles whispering at once like a chant with no words. You stop walking, you listen, and for a long moment the sound fills you entirely. Beside the path, a small wooden bench welcomes you. You sit, letting the wind wash over you. There is no rhythm, yet it soothes you. No melody, yet it speaks. The monk who tends this part of the forest appears like a shadow from between the trees. He does not greet you with words. Instead, he stands beside the nearest pine and places his palm flat against its trunk. This, he finally says, is how thoughts pass through the mind. You look up uncertain. He gestures to the swaying limbs. The wind doesn't cling. It doesn't ask the pine to follow. It moves and the tree sings, but only for a moment. Then it is still again. And now you see. Your thoughts, like the wind, arise, stir, and pass away. They are not permanent. They do not define you. They do not need to be stopped or followed or feared, only witnessed. The Buddha spoke of this long ago. He likened the mind to a mirror, sometimes dusty, sometimes clear. But always its nature is to reflect, not to retain. When you suffer, it is often not because of the thought itself, but because of the grasping, the attachment, the refusal to let the wind pass. The monk smiles faintly, as if hearing your unspoken questions. Let your mind be like this forest, he says. Let the winds come. Let them sing. And let them go. You sit in stillness, and the forest moves around you. A gust stirs a tree nearby, and a flurry of needles falls gently to the earth. None resist. None cling to the sky. Even in falling, there is no struggle. A Zen anecdote comes to mind. A student asked the master how to find peace. The master pointed to the pine tree and said, "When the wind stops, the branches are still. When the mind stops grasping, peace is already here." You look inward. How many thoughts have you tried to hold, shape, chase? How many moments have you missed, caught in the whirlwind of needing to understand? And if you were to sit, just sit, and let them move through you like this wind, what would remain? Perhaps not silence, but something deeper, stillness. The monk begins to walk away, his footsteps soundless on the pine-covered trail. You remain on the bench, breathing, listening. Above, the wind rises again, and you do not reach for it. You let it pass. You let it sing. You let it go. A question with no answer. The monastery hall is quiet now. Long after the evening meal, long after the chants have faded into silence. You sit alone, a single candle burning beside you, casting long shadows on the floor. The walls seem to breathe with the night. Even your thoughts are subdued, not gone, but softer, like stones resting at the bottom of a clear stream. Then from behind you, the sound of footsteps. A monk enters and walks slowly to where you sit. His face is lined with age, but his eyes hold a brightness untouched by time. He lowers himself to the floor beside you and places a small slip of paper in front of the candle's flame. On it is written a question: who are you when you are not thinking about who you are? You read it once, twice. The words remain simple, but the meaning shifts each time you try to hold it. You open your mouth to speak, but what could be said? The monk watches you quietly, then closes his eyes. He says nothing more. He does not explain. He does not offer hints or context. The question lingers in the air like incense, burning, curling, disappearing. It reminds you of a Zen koan, one of those riddles meant not to be solved, but to shake the mind loose from its habits. What is the sound of one hand clapping? What was your face before your parents were born? Does a dog have Buddha nature? The point is not the answer. The point is what happens to the self when the mind stops looking for one. You sit with the question: who are you when the story ends? When the voice in your head grows quiet? When you're not performing, planning, regretting, wanting? Who remains when you are not narrating your life? The candle flickers. For a moment, your mind reaches toward ideas, names, memories, titles, roles. But each one falls away as soon as it arises. They are not you, not fully. They are garments worn by something deeper, something without shape or voice. Buddhism calls this emptiness shunyata, not as a void, but as spaciousness, a freedom from fixed identity, the open sky that holds clouds without becoming them. The old monk finally speaks, voice low and steady. The self is not a thing. It's a movement, a wave, a habit of thought. You feel it now, how your usual thoughts grasp for meaning, cling to form. But this question slips through the fingers. It opens a space you're not used to inhabiting. And in that space, a strange peace. You're not required to answer. You're invited to stop trying, to rest in the unknowing, to sit with the open question, to allow mystery not as a problem to fix, but as a doorway to presence. The monk smiles gently and rises. He leaves without another word, the question still burning in your mind, like the candle at your side, steady, quiet, alive. You remain, you breathe. You do not solve the question, you become it. If the answer has no words, what will silence say instead? Beyond the last step, the path you've followed through the monastery, through pine forests, lantern-lit walkways, and sun-warmed stone, brings you now to its edge. You reach a place where the trail fades into grass, then into wild earth, until there is no path at all, only open sky, distant ridge lines, and a quiet that seems untouched by footsteps or time. You stand for a moment at the boundary. A stone placed there marks what is often called the last step. Not a formal border, not a wall, just a small, humble stone set where the made path ends and unmarked space begins. A younger monk approaches carrying a walking stick. He kneels beside the stone, placing his hand upon it, as if greeting an old friend. This, he says softly, is where many turn back. You look out at the open land. It is not threatening, but it is unknown. Some say this is the edge of the practice, he continues. But the master says there is no edge, only the end of maps. He tells you the story of a pilgrim who once traveled far in search of enlightenment. At each temple, she was given new teachings. At each turn, a new technique, a new vow, a new mantra. She grew skilled, even admired. But still, something inside remained unsettled. Finally, at the summit of a quiet hill, she found an old teacher seated alone who handed her a blank sheet of paper. "This is your final teaching," the master said. The pilgrim frowned. "There's nothing on it." "No," the master replied. "Now stop walking." And the student at last sat down. Here at the edge of the monastery, you begin to understand. All the teachings, the rituals, the stories, the questions have brought you to this moment. But they cannot take you further. The next step is not a step at all. It is rest. It is release. It is the full surrender of the search itself. The Buddha once said, "There is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path." And perhaps now you see that the path has always been beneath your feet, not something to reach, but something to realize. You sit beside the stone. The wind moves through the tall grasses. Your breath rises and falls like the hills in the distance, no longer striving, no longer chasing. A bird calls once, then lifts into flight, not toward anything, just into the open. You think back to the beginning of your journey here, the footsteps at the gate, the still pond, the silent monk. You thought there would be an ending, some peak, some final understanding. But now there is just this, the fullness of an unsought moment, the tenderness of not needing more. In Zen, they say the journey ends, not when the truth is found, but when there's no more need to find it. You lie back in the grass, The earth is cool and steady beneath you. The sky stretches endlessly above, asking nothing, offering everything. No destination, no next step, only now, only this, and it is enough. What happens when the seeking stops? What if peace was waiting beyond the last step, not ahead, but beneath you all along? The journey is complete now, not because you have reached a final place, but because there is nowhere left to go. You lie here wrapped in the breath of night, soft, slow, unhurried. The questions have grown quiet. The teachings once vivid now float like petals on water. Nothing needs to be solved. Nothing needs to be held. You are simply here, and that is enough. The wind no longer carries thought. The mind no longer holds weight. Like a candle that has burned to its base, there is no struggle, no smoke, only the warmth left behind. Whatever you carried at the start, the worries, the longings, the shapes of self you wore, they have softened now, melted into the stillness between each breath. Feel your body resting, the quiet rhythm of your chest, the spaciousness behind your eyes, the way the earth holds you without condition. This moment has no edges, no past, no future, only the hush, only the letting go, a single breath in, out, again. That is the path now. You do not need to try. You do not need to know. You do not need to be anyone at all. Let the night take the rest. Let the stars keep watch. Let the teachings drift like mist across a still pond. Sleep if you wish, or lie awake soft and safe. And if you're still awake, that's okay too. Some nights just lying still and breathing softly is enough to return home to yourself.